Can you hear me? How's it going? I'm here. I hope you're out there somewhere doing well today. It is Saturday, the 20th of January, 2024. The year is waking up, having a nice stretch, and getting ready to see what is in store. And I am Nick, your host of the creator of HEYS Reviews channel. And this is episode number 14 of HEYS Reviews Lives, Green Queen, the Climatriarch. Thank God you arrived. Welcome to the party and hold on to your butts. Boom. We're here. Hello. Good to see you all. I say you all and see you, but I'm actually just looking into a webcam. That's the way you do these things. Surprisingly, it takes a lot of practice and time and deliberate effort to train yourself to look directly into the camera like this. So those of you watching out there, I hope you appreciate this simulated eye contact. Always better to look people in the eye when you're talking to them. And it's much easier to do that if what you're saying is something you believe to be true, something you care about, something you're passionate about, and you have good intentions. Okay, the eyes are the windows to the soul, so it's very important to make that eye contact and speak with confidence and tell the truth. Nigel Watson put out a fantastic video recently where he was, I think he read a letter from Alexander Solzhenitsyn about the importance of telling the truth. And yes, and especially in this day and age when we are up to our necks in information, digital information streams coming at us from all directions. Anyone in the world can broadcast and say what they want and put things out there, and it is impossible to take it all in on our own. And so that's what I'm here to help you do. I'm putting these shows together. I'm sifting through information. I'm reading articles. I'm gathering resources and marshaling information streams and sources from different places to bring them together and sort of provide them to you in a sort of one-stop shop where to save you the time and save you the effort and the energy and some people don't have the appetite to read lots, and I get that. I understand it. We got busy lives. We've got jobs to do and children to look after. We got to take care of ourselves. We got to find ways to make it through the day, and not everyone has the appetite to sit down and trudge through thousands and thousands of words on a screen or in a book. And so I'm here to alleviate some of that, to make it a little bit easier, and to put together some shows that'll help you and kind of fast track you along and help you navigate this sort of swamp of information that we live in. And even though I call it a swamp, there is still nutritious stuff out there. There are people out there who are creating incredibly important work that I think we need to see more of. But you know, it kind of gets drowned out by the nonsense. It gets drowned out by the cat pictures and the pictures of what we had for lunch and the influencers who hire expensive cars and make fake lives and project those out online. There's a lot of nonsense. There's a lot of noise. And I'm trying to be a sort of homing beacon for people to come and find some signal. And that's what I intend to do on this show. And I've got another jam-packed, over-the-top, ridiculously huge, long show for you today. And there's all sorts in it. We got books, we got articles, we got videos, we got documentaries, and we've got at least one podcast. Yeah, one podcast to put on your radar and for you to learn from. And so let's get right into it. If anybody's out there seeing this, I got a message from a good friend saying we are live. Okay, awesome. That's good. Sound is good and my picture's on. What more could you want? So let's move right over into the articles and dive right in. So today we're starting with the Daily Skeptic. And they have this really good tagline here, which is question everything, stay sane, live free. Now, the Daily Skeptic do bring some really good information and analysis and writers and articles. They kind of amalgamate a bunch of different writers and they point you to other articles. They kind of do a similar thing that I do, but they do have bias and they do have blind spots of things that they never look at. So we don't go in there expecting it to be a font of all information and knowledge. You know, we got to go in with a critical eye and just go in and take what's useful and then move on. But this story stood out to me this week. And as I said, I told you the title of the episode. I'm sure you can guess what the kind of topic is about. But Green Queen, the Climatriarch. In fact, let me go back to this for now, and I'll explain a little bit about the title before we get into the show. The point of this title is to really have a look at the climate cult, the religion of save the earth, save Gaia, and worship Gaia, that is becoming sort of endemic in our institutions, in our corporations, in our schools, and the lessons that we're teaching young people. There is this kind of self-hating, we're a virus on the face of the earth. We have to sacrifice ourselves and our children for the greater good, for the common good, for the common, the air and the grass and the bees. And all these things are very valuable, and we should look after them and take efforts to ensure their survival and continuation into the future, because we ourselves benefit from having the natural world around us, and we heal from being within it. And that is where we belong. You know, it's where we were designed to exist, not to be in cubicles and offices surrounded by chemical-laden fake versions of everything. So like all good scams, there's a really good kernel, an element of truth to this one. But of course, it is being used as a way to roll out control, to roll out digital slavery systems, to roll out vast, profound curtailments of freedom. And that's what we're going to be looking at today. So that's why I called it the Green Queen, the Climatriarch, because it's becoming this sort of otherworldly presence in our lives that I think people are kind of suffering under. You know, it's almost becoming like an evil sort of goddess. And yes, we're doing this in the name of the planet and, you know, Mother Nature. It's often cast as a feminine entity, Mother Nature and Gaia. It's like our mother, but I want to say that there's a devouring aspect to this. There's a toxic feminine aspect, if you will, to this whole movement that I think needs to be highlighted and we need to be aware of, because there are very many problems which are very true that this movement and push is aiming at and pointing out. There are serious problems about our environment and the way we live in it. But the solutions that are being pushed are absolutely incorrect and totally wrong and false. And they need to be called out for what they are, because that's the scam element of this. Okay. So that is where the name came from. I hope that makes sense. And if it doesn't make sense, then you're just going to have to stick around for the next 3 hours or so and allow me to build my case and then judge at the end of that. So let's get into it. The Daily Skeptic. This is from yesterday. Tata Steel axes 3,000 jobs at UK's biggest steelworks as the UK becomes the only G20 country unable to make its own steel. Progress. Yeah. So this is Will Jones, and he's saying that more than 3,000 jobs are set to be lost at the UK's biggest steelworks. In the UK's net zero deindustrialization strategy sees it set to become the only country in the G20 unable to make its own steel from scratch. That doesn't sound good to me. Getting rid of thousands of jobs and removing our ability to create a critical piece of material that we need for our infrastructure and our buildings and these kind of projects, right? I've just been watching the series Mad Men recently, and he works with a steel company, and it's Bethlehem Steel. And the tagline they come up with is the backbone of America. You know, so this is a really critical resource and product that we need if we want to build things. And we're just going to scrap our ability to do that, which, as this article tells us, is going to make us dependent on importation and other countries. And, you know, whenever you're dependent, then you're under control and you've lost freedom. And that's a step towards being a slave, further towards being a slave. And interestingly, in this case, the company rejected an alternative plan put forward, which was aimed at saving jobs. And the estimate, and the Tata estimates the plant is losing around £1 million a day. So they don't want to save the jobs. They just want to shut it all down. And Stephen Kinnock, Labour MP for Aberavon, is speaking up about this. He said every home in the town is affected by the facility and warned the job losses would be devastating. He said the multi-unions have come together and put a plan on the table which would actually be much more of a bridge rather than a cliff edge to the changes that we know have to take place within our steel industry. Why? Why do these changes have to take place? Well, it's because of net zero. But instead of that plan, we've got a plan which has been cobbled together between Tata Steel and the UK government, which is going to use £500 million of taxpayers' money to make 3,000 men and women redundant, and is also going to remove the British capability to make its own steel from scratch. So that is a lot of damage and a lot of harm for a very, very high price, £500 million, to put people out of work and further cripple our economy and our standing as a developed nation. In case you haven't figured it out yet, we are rapidly heading in the opposite direction, and we're going to be becoming more on par with a sort of third world developing nation very soon, if these kind of developments are not called out, talked about, scrutinized, and halted. So this £500 million to sack a bunch of men and women. Great. We will become the only country that is no longer able to produce its own steel. So the Mirror is reported on this, and this is an Indian firm, which was interesting. And it says they'll press ahead with their plan to close the last 2 blast furnaces at the plant and replace them with electric arc furnace, EAC. And that means thousands of job losses by 2027. And what's an electric arc furnace? Because that sounds pretty good. Sounds cool. Sounds decent. Sounds kind of up to date and flashy. And something we might want to find out about. Well, EACs alone cannot make high quality virgin steel from iron ore, which means the plant would be reliant on cheap scrap metal from overseas as raw materials. Basically turning this aspect, the steel production in our country, to the equivalent of people who live on landfills and rubbish tips and go scavenging through the leftovers and the things other people have thrown out to try and find something that's salvageable and useful. That's kind of the equivalent of what our steel industry is going to become. And so this is just one aspect of this push to net zero and the kind of effect it has on real life people living here, working here, paying into the tax system here. The citizens, they're getting told to F off, basically. And the taxpayers are paying for that. £500 million. Unbelievable. The Mail Online. So this last story, you wonder how these things can go, how they can get pushed through, how they can be approved at the higher up and the higher levels. Well, this story in the Mail Online sheds a bit of light on that mechanism and how it works. Just bear with me one moment. I'm going to clear my throat and take a sip of coffee. And I'm back. This gives us, shines a light on that mechanism. And so the Mail Online's bringing Labour's Green champion Ed Miliband accepts £230,000 donation from billionaire family behind the Tetra Pak empire as critics accuse packaging giant of clogging up world's landfill sites. I think that should be landfill, shouldn't it? Nice one, Mail Online. Glenn Owen, the political editor, no less, as well. So this is from the 24th of December. Mr. Miliband, who is the Shadow Secretary of State for Climate Change, is receiving almost £20,000 a month from Lisbeth Rousing, the granddaughter of Tetra Pak's co-founder. Reports of the donation have emerged amid new Labour infighting over the party's pledge to borrow £28 billion to invest in green jobs and industry. Here he is. That facial expression that he's assuming there, I think, is probably one that he has to make quite a lot in his career to get to where he is. And this is Lisbeth Rousing. And she's wearing some sort of gold gown. And it kind of reminds me of that optical illusion on the internet recently about not recently, in the last, I don't know how old that was now actually, but it was an optical illusion and people couldn't tell the color of the dress. But yeah, look at this. She looks friendly. She looks nice. And she's paying Ed Miliband £20,000. And he presumably gets down on his knees and then makes this face. But who is she? So I'd never heard of Lisbeth Rousing before, and I thought, I want to look into this woman. Who is she? Can we learn a little bit more about her? And yes, indeed we can. We can go onto Wikipedia, and here we can find out that she is a science historian and philanthropist. Yay. Yay for philanthropy. They love us. They want to save us. They care so much about you and I that all they want to do is just give away their wealth. Just give it away. Somehow they keep getting richer, but that's part of it, because that's what happens when you give away your money to help other people. You get richer, something like that. And this is she's a co-founder of one of the UK's largest philanthropic foundations, Arcadia, which I'd never heard of. A little bit about her early life and who she's related to. This bit stood out to me, though. Rousing is a senior research fellow at King's College. She holds honorary doctorates. She's also an honorary fellow of the British Academy, the Linnean Society, the Royal Historical Society, the Royal Society of Biology, and the Royal Swedish Academy of Agriculture and Forestry. She was elected to the Harvard Board of Overseers and Yad Hanadiv Advisory Committee. Okay, so a lot of accolades. She's certainly, and she's a doctor. A lot of accolades, and she's certainly mixing around and hanging around in this sort of academic world where she's pushing, presumably, scientism, and doing so for the benefit of the rest of us. Philanthropy. So this Arcadia Fund is probably worth digging into. I didn't have time before this show to dig into the Arcadia Fund and what it's been involved in before. But it's made huge commitments of money in dollars, interestingly. And they're listed as one of the biggest benefactors to the Wikimedia Foundation and donated $5 million to the Wikimedia Endowment in 2017 after Baldwin joined its advisory board. So Baldwin is this lady's husband, Rousing's husband. And they're funding Wikipedia and the Wikimedia people. And as we know, Wikipedia is now kind of a gatekeeper of information. It's very unreliable. It's a good starting place to learn things. And it is incredible what is actually admitted on Wikipedia. You can learn a hell of a lot by browsing Wikipedia. But it's a jumping off point. And it's certainly become the go-to place for many people. If you're maybe discussing something down the pub and there's a disagreement, quite often people whip out their phone and go straight to either Google or Wikipedia. And then people take whatever's written here as the be-all, end-all, final conclusion. That's it, case closed, stamp it shut, and end of conversation. And that's just not the case. This thing is constantly being edited. It's constantly changing. Anyone can go in there and make edits. Yes, there's resources underneath, and it does do a kind of semi-decent job of appearing legitimate and well-referenced. But as I said, it's a good jumping-off point, but we have to go further with our reading and our learning. But Elizabeth Rounding, so we learn she's a philanthropist. She's into running the Arcadia Fund, lots of science and academic positions, and she's a member of so many societies. And she's from this family, who are a wealthy Swedish family best known for the Tetra Pak founder, Ruben Rousing. And several members of the family now live here in the United Kingdom. Notable family members: businessman, industrialist, businessman, businesswoman, businessman, philanthropist. So it's always interesting that none of these businesses are mentioned. What are these businesses they're into that are making them rich and keeping them able to give £20,000 a month to the shadow secretary? He's not even the guy in charge at the minute. He's just shadowing. £20,000 a month. And then I found this story at the bottom here, which I clicked onto and had a look at, which was Eva Rousing found dead in Belgravia home. This is from 2012, so I had a look at that. 11th of July 2012, and so she was 48 years old, and she was a member of this family, and she was found dead, and the death was treated as unexplained. Scotland Yard said. Helpful. And the police refused to comment on reports that a 49-year-old man arrested in connection with the death on suspicion of possession of drugs is her husband. So they wouldn't confirm nor deny that, presumably. And Metropolitan Police spokesman said the man was no longer at a police station and was currently receiving medical attention. So this, it highlights how useless the BBC are, because it really tells us nothing. It just kind of hints at things. And it says they wouldn't not confirm that it might possibly have been this person over here, who they said they wouldn't not definitely agree to admitting it could possibly not be. It's that kind of non-speak that doesn't go anywhere or tell you anything, and you think you're left with an impression about what happened, but it didn't actually tell you anything. You just kind of get left with a seed planted in your mind about what story you've just read. Interestingly, her parents, Tom, a wealthy Pepsi executive. I thought that was quite good. That stood out. So they're involved with the poison sugar water industry, the addictive, poisonous sugar water industry, which seems to have reached every single country now. And you can go anywhere in the world and get yourself a nice Pepsi or a Coca-Cola, even if it's a third world developing country with no other infrastructure and no other products on the shelves and in the shops. They've got Pepsi and they've got Coca-Cola. So that's the kind of people these people are in with. And there was drug charges as well involved in this Mrs. Rousing's past, which was in 2008. Her and her husband faced drug charges after crack, heroin, and 52 grams of cocaine were found in their home. That is a hell of a party right there. Mrs. Rousing had been arrested after she allegedly tried to smuggle small amounts of crack cocaine and heroin into the U.S. Embassy in London. So they're obviously kicking it back and having some good parties in the U.S. Embassy in London. The charges were dropped, and they just gave her a slap on the wrist and said, "Don't do it again unless you invite us to the party." I imagine that's what happened anyway, but it just says, a caution issued instead. That just sounds like they cautioned her, like, look, if you want to get away with doing this, here's how you do it. Be careful. We'll catch you if you don't hide it in this certain way. So it's like they just helped her out with how to get away with it. Anyway, that's a little bit about who this woman is and the kind of people she comes from and is related to, and she's funding Ed Miliband, who is pledging to borrow even more money, get the country in even more debt, further increase the debt burden and obligation on the taxpayers of this country, just so we can invest in green jobs and industry, while at the same time, I'm going the wrong way, while at the same time, getting rid of jobs and industry. So it's just a farce, isn't it, when you really look at these things side by side. Carrying on in this article, critics have pointed out that although Tetra Pak claims its products are 100% recyclable, this is only the case if the recyclers use special equipment to separate the complex combination of polyethylene, paper, and aluminium. Well, polyethylene and aluminium should not be anywhere near the substances that you put in your body. That's one thing I'll say. And the second is, of course, they have to need the special equipment to do the recycling. Recycling is, I think, an absolute farce. But it's one of those things that exists in order to make people feel like they're, doing the right thing at the altar of the Green Queen, the Climatriarch. As many recycling companies don't have the required machinery, 3/4 of Tetra Pak products are thrown away instead. Now, my understanding is that's globally. Apparently here in the UK, we do have that required machinery. But the UK is tiny and insignificant really in the grand scheme of things. And if these Tetra Paks are going out all over the world, 3/4 of them are ending up in landfill. That is landfill that is just full with polyethylene. This is paper and this is aluminium. This is one aspect of the climate conversation, taking care of the environment and pollution that is actually legit. All these massive companies, super wealthy people paying off politicians and being allowed to continually make these products and sell them to people who have no other choice, no alternative. So they have to buy them if you want to drink your almond milk or whatever it is that comes in these Tetra Paks. They pay the politicians off to be able to keep making these products that are just full of poison and end up being dumped in the environment somewhere. And they're the ones responsible. It's the people producing them, the people whose businesses and corporations and companies create these products and put them on the shelves in the first place. But because the establishment wants you to think it's your fault and your responsibility to deal with this, you're the one who has to wash them out and clean out your yogurt pots and put them in the correct colored bin, and they come around and collect that and then chuck it in a landfill anyway. But you feel like you're doing the right thing and saving the world when it's not your fault and it's not you doing it. It's these people such as Lisbeth Rousing. And Lisbeth, that's got to be one of the ponciest names I've ever heard, right? I assume it's a kind of posh version of Elizabeth, but you can't even get posher than Elizabeth, can you? I don't know. I shouldn't make fun of people's names. Sorry to anyone out there called Lisbeth. Lisbeth Rousing's grandfather co-founded the company in Sweden in 1951. The combined worth of her mother, her two siblings, and herself is estimated at just under £10 billion. Billion with a B. Tetra Pak said it was committed to leading the sustainability transformation of the packaging sector. A spokesman added, "Our cartons are fully recyclable where adequate collection, sorting, and recycling infrastructure is in place." Well, my question would be, do you only sell them in places where that adequate infrastructure is in place? The answer is obviously no. We'll sell them anywhere to anyone who will buy them. And what I thought was pretty interesting here is he said the company intended to invest up to 35 million. Ooh, wow. What an investment when they're worth 10 billion. They can spare 35 million to increase the collection and recycling of carton packages. Look, don't make them in the first place. Okay. Or make them out of things that are fully compostable, biodegradable, and recyclable. You can do that out of fungus and mushrooms. You can even do that out of hemp. Okay. Don't make them in the first place. Don't put them on the shelves. Don't corner the market and build up a monopoly and force people to have to buy them if they want a bit of orange juice or a bit of cranberry juice or whatever's inside them, right? Don't make them in the first place. Then you won't have to continue this sham, this embarrassing, farcical kind of pantomime of, oh, we care so much, we'll invest in more infrastructure to properly recycle our products that are toxic and poisonous. Don't make them in the first place, obviously. And we should also not buy them. That's another aspect, but okay, so we had a look at the Rousing family. I bet there would be more interesting things to find out there, particularly with their connections with philanthropy, science history, and also the drug charges and the deaths. It sounds like they got a lot of interesting history and probably some skeletons in the closet there. Having another sip. I'm going to need a new picture for sipping coffee, aren't I? I'll get right on that. I'll get my assistant to do it. I am my own assistant. I don't have an assistant yet, but one day maybe I will. So this next story is the Mail Online. This is a Quebec climate change conspiracy theorist pleads guilty to starting 14 fires. So this headline caught my eye because it had the that ignorant term conspiracy theorist in it. What this term says to me for people who use it or ever unless they're using it knowingly and mockingly, what this term says to me is I'm ignorant and I have no idea what is actually going on in the world, and I dismiss it by using this phrase and conspiracy theory. That's what the phrase says to me. We can trace back to when this phrase became used, when it was created, who it was created by, and what it was created for. That history exists. It's not hard to find, worth knowing before you go around sort of betraying and displaying your ignorance to other people. By using this term, but it grabbed my eye because they stuck it in the headline. So this is a climate change conspiracy theorist, and he has pled guilty to starting 14 fires. Okay. So it's a confusing headline. I'm not quite sure where they were going to go with this, so let's dive into it and find out. This is Brian Paré. He's 38, and he's pled guilty to starting 14 forest fires, including fires in, and what's that little share selection thing? Chapé and Lake Cavan and he pled guilty in Chibougamau in Quebec. And I apologize to anyone out there who might be from that place and knows how it's supposed to be pronounced. I apologize that I don't know how to pronounce that. It's a great word though. Chibougamau. Itchy nose. 2 of the 14 fires set by him had forced the evacuation of around 500 homes in June 2023. So that is that's pretty wild. That's a huge impact. So he's been found guilty. He has been charged with 13 counts of arson and 1 count of arson with disregard for human life. Okay, there he is. What's he got on his hat there? Looks like I don't know. Interesting. It's like a sun. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's a sports logo or something. You always got to look at these symbols and the pictures they choose to put up. These fires, I don't even know if these are from the fires that he's started. But anyway, some dramatic fires there to really hammer home how bad this is. One of the largest fires ignited by Paré was in Lake Cavan and burned 873 hectares of forest, which is that's a decent amount, isn't it? That's a huge amount. More scary pictures of smoke and fires. The investigators who began to probe into the cause of the 5 fires soon discovered that none of them were started naturally, But I thought climate change and global warming and the Climatriarch was causing these fires to punish us, to teach us, to make sacrifices, to change our ways to save the planet. Nope, they're started by people, and why would that be? Charon told court that evidence was found indicating that some of the fires had been criminally set. While he denied causing the fires, police began to suspect Paré as he demonstrated a certain interest in fires when being questioned. So I would love to read the transcript of that. You know, the police there just like, hey, Paré, so Brian, you like fires? And Brian says, yeah, I like fires. They're, keep you warm and nice to look at. And the next thing, he demonstrated a certain interest in fires, and so we better lock him up, put him in a cage. Around the same time, he had also begun to post about Quebec's record-breaking forest fire season on his social media page. Some of the posts were claims that the fires had been deliberately set by the government to trick people into believing in climate change. Interesting claim. I wonder what his evidence for that was. Maybe the receipt. That's the first thing that popped into my mind was maybe he's the guy the government has paid to do this. Charon further told the court ideology. Right, okay, this sentence doesn't make sense, so I had to read this a few times. Charon further told the court, and I think there's a missing word here. I think it should be his ideology and behavior. Talking about Brian, his ideology and behavior matched a profile of the suspect developed by provincial police specialists and officials. Soon gained a warrant. Okay, this sentence, this is awful. Charon further told the court his ideology and behavior matched a profile of the suspect developed by provincial police, specialists and by provincial police specialists, and officials soon gained a warrant to install a tracking device on Paré's vehicle. I don't know why I struggle so much with that sentence. So they've said that his ideology and behavior match a profile because he's posting online and he's accusing the government of doing things that harm people, which, they all do, whether that's people in our country or people in other countries. All governments are interested in harming people somewhere because they all have massive military budgets and armies, right? And weapons and contracts with weapons manufacturers. So all governments are interested in harming people somewhere. I don't think you can deny that claim. So they've profiled him and they've said, yeah, this guy, he's what was it? He's demonstrated a certain interest in fires and he's posting bad things about the government. Let's go and put a tracking vehicle on him. And then it turns out that on September the 1st and the 5th, the tracking device showed he was at the locations where other fires had started. He was ultimately arrested on September the 7th and admitted to the police that he had ignited 9 of the fires. The prosecutor told the court, at this point, the accused admitted he was the one who started the fires and, as his main motivation claimed, he was doing tests to find out whether the forest was really dry or not. There's so many weird things about this article that just don't make sense. What a claim. Oh, I just wanted to see if the forest was dry, so I set it on fire. So yeah, perhaps he is a fall guy. Maybe he was paid to instigate some of these things. Maybe not by the government, maybe by some other group, maybe some charity or some think tank who is invested in the climate change narrative and profiting from that. Who knows? But a lot of weird things about this particular story, and I enjoyed reading it very much. It gave me a few good laughs. So it'd be good to know more about that, actually. All right, this is the Telegraph. This is a teenager enraged by global warming who plotted terror attacks, and the court has heard that story. This is Jacob Graham, who's 19 years old. He wanted to kill at least 50 people in revenge for living in a society that was destroying itself, jury told. Another very interesting story, similar in theme and tone to the last one, but with a few more curious details in it. Jacob Graham, 19, was motivated by a hatred and contempt for the government who oppressed working class people and planned to kill at least 50 in a series of attacks. Now, I don't know, maybe the reason he's thinking about that is because the steel mills in his town are getting shut down. and 3,000 of his, family members and friends of families and extended family have just been laid off. And now they have no jobs and no way to pay their exorbitant energy bills and pay the exorbitant cost of food in the country. And all that's because the government has committed to net zero and committed to saving the planet and sacrificing the working class at the altar of the Green Queen, the Climatriarch. I don't know, could just be me, but Jacob Graham, that's what he thinks. He said he's tired of living in a society that was deteriorating and destroying itself. Well, I disagree. I don't think the society is destroying itself. I think it's being destroyed, and we're kind of, in many cases, many of us, as I've talked about before, are being sort of led down this path of least resistance towards our own destruction. But certainly there is destruction and deterioration occurring and going on. I don't think that is controversial or possible to refute. The teenager denies 8 terror charges, including the preparation of terrorist acts between May 2022 and May 2023, and the possession of sharing of documents and materials likely to be useful to those committing terrorist acts. So here, this is a bit of revelation, because this is showing you that pretty soon you're going to get charged, arrested, fingered, you're going to get pointed at, you're going to get added to a list for just owning electronic copies of documents, for owning specific configurations of ones and zeros that are now going to be deemed useful and likely to be useful to those who are, even if you're not, you don't know any terrorists and you're not a terrorist, maybe you're researching and writing a PhD thesis on, terrorism, and you need to look at these documents to see, well, you could be suspected, Minority Report style, pre-crime, coming after you, kicking your door down. And so this is one of the details that's casually thrown in, and you kind of move past it because it's not the bulk main focus of the article, right? But it's thrown in there just to tell you, just to reveal to you, you can now you can get in trouble for possession and sharing of digital copies of documents, right? They want to normalize that. They want that to become the standard, so that people are self-censoring and paranoid and worried all the time and falling in line, basically. So he was aiming to bring about the downfall of society. This is another confusing quote. He was anti the concept of government. He expressed the view that he was sick and tired of living in a society that was deteriorating and destroying itself. His grievances were motivated both by the hatred of the government and ecological concerns. He points to pollution, destruction of forests, climate change, global warming, famine, and the exploitation of natural resources for minerals and gas. So let's have a look at these. Pollution, absolutely real problem, but largely caused by corporations, and corporations paying off politicians such as Ed Miliband in order to carry on producing completely toxic products that pollute our environment and make it unlivable, not only for us, but for our animal friends as well. Destruction of forests. Yeah, absolutely. That is happening. You just take a train across country here in the UK, and we're a small country, but it's just empty fields everywhere. All of that could be forest. All of that could be planted with edible plants, with food. It could be trees, saplings, grow up. Let's create more forest and cover more. No, just empty fields sitting there. And there's a reason for that, is that the landowners get paid subsidies to have empty fields sitting there that are just ready to be produced on. You don't have to produce anything on it to rake in these subsidies. So destruction of forest, yeah, real thing. Climate change. It's a myth. It's a hoax. We're going to learn about that later on in this episode, so stick around. But that's, not a real thing. I mean, not in the way he's referring to it here. Global warming, same. Famine, again, artificially created. There's absolutely no reason. There's more than enough food for everybody created. Right? But it's the people controlling that supply. They want to create artificial scarcity. It helps to divide and conquer. It helps to keep people under control. Massive protests going on at the minute over in Europe, Germany, the Netherlands. Farmers, they're taking their tractors, they're parking them, and they're clogging up the cities. They're spraying manure on the politicians' buildings. They're really pushing back because of these net zero, ridiculous climate change goals, which involve reducing the production of food. So the famine is totally man-made, totally created, totally done to us, okay? Exploitation of natural resources for minerals and gas. Well, I mean, look, everything that you value, every quality piece of technology, it depends upon that. Your heating, your ability to cook, the fridge, the electricity, all this stuff that you enjoy in the modern world that brings like comfort and could be classed as luxury that your ancestors and 90% of the humans who ever lived never had. It all depends on the exploitation of natural resources for minerals and gas. I mean, that's just the way it is. The jury was told that Mr. Graham had made 105 videos, and he also wrote a document entitled My Letter. I want to see those videos and read that letter. I really want to, because I don't trust the Telegraph to represent this man accurately. I'd like to see him in his own words. And interestingly, he said that he was modeling himself after Theodore Kaczynski, who's an incredibly interesting figure, was very prescient, not saying what he did was right, not endorsing the actions that he took, but his writings were very, very astute and very, and he was a professor, right? It says it's an American terrorist bomber, but actually he was an academic and a professor and respected in his areas of work, and he saw what was coming. And he tried to warn people. That was one aspect of who he was. I'm not condoning him, not saying he was a hero or anything, just saying he had a point. And so I would really like to see these videos and this letter that this gentleman here, this teenager, wrote. He could be a gentleman as well, couldn't he, Jacob Graham? But maybe not if he's planning on murdering 50 people. The jury was told that he acquired the information needed to construct bombs, firearms, and ammunition, and he also sourced and obtained chemicals, and a 3D printer. So you can see this story is going to be used to drum up some fear about about free speech and the access to internet online. This story is being used to say he shouldn't have had access to the information about bombs and firearms. Do you know what? If we had a digital ID, he wouldn't have been able to access that information. If we had a digital ID and a programmable digital currency, he would not have been able to buy chemicals and a 3D printer, because we would have seen that he was going to look the things he was looking at, and that would have fed into his digital wallet, and that would have restricted his ability to buy these materials. So we need a digital. So you can see where it's all going. I mean, connect the dots. She said the police found a number of chemicals, each of which could be used as ingredients in various explosive mixtures. Right. I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say 99% of the households that people live in the UK contain chemicals that can be used as ingredients in various explosive mixtures, right? So that sentence is stupid and it means nothing. The officers also found a 3D printer, which had the potential to be used to print parts of homemade firearms, and which had been a Christmas present. 3D printers, they're revolutionary. They're incredibly useful, right? I think we should all have them in our homes. That you can use them to print little doodahs and gadgets and doohickeys that could really, replace things that break in your home, or just it should be a technology that's ubiquitous and very helpful, and it could be very freeing to people, right? But here it's being vilified. It's being linked with evil, with terrorism, with guns and firearms and murder. Again, another extremely another piece of technology with an incredible potential to aid people and improve people's lives, being vilified and poo-pooed, and that's another kind of side angle of this particular piece of propaganda from the Telegraph. The court heard Mr. Graham bought various chemicals and hid some in a tube, which he buried in Formby Woods in Merseyside. In a tube. Miss Darlow said he wrote a document entitled Freedom Encyclopedia, which was filled with instructions on how to build weapons, shotguns, and nail bombs. Now, I'd also like to read the Freedom Encyclopedia, not because I want to build a weapon or a shotgun or a nail bomb, but it's interesting that this person associates weapons and weaponry and the ability to defend yourself with freedom. And that is absolutely true. Like, I can't remember who said it and where the quote's from, but the idea is that the apex of freedom exists when everybody is well armed. And probably American listeners or people who are familiar with American history or spend time in America, I don't know, will kind of be more understanding of this idea. But the idea is, like, if everyone's walking around with guns, you're going to have a very polite and kind society who do not provoke each other, who are very careful to get emotional, to get angry, to say careless things. There's going to be a level of threat there, which is going to feed into a kind of social order, And so, but if your ability to defend yourself is taken away, historically what happens when a population is disarmed? Have a look up examples of when populations were disarmed throughout history. Find out what happened to them immediately afterwards. So I'm not saying anything about let's all have shotguns and build weapons and nail bombs and blah, 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 blah. I'm not saying any of that. I'm not advocating for any of this, but I'm saying I think there's going to be more to this guy and his philosophy and where he was coming from, what he learned, and why he was interested in these things than the Telegraph is willing to admit. So Telegraph, let's see these videos and let's read his letter and let's read his encyclopedia and really see where he was coming from. And he might have had some good points, just like old Ted. The Mail Online. Eco-developers want to ruin our countryside village by building a giant solar farm the size of 120 football pitches. It's a disgrace. So furious locals fear the vast solar farm in Leicestershire will ruin the countryside. The giant eco-power development is set to be built on a 200-acre green belt site. Any angry residents have blasted the proposal and claim it will be a terrible site. 120 football pitches? Whew, that's huge. That is really huge. So this is destined. So that's an interesting word they used here, isn't it? The proposed new solar farm is destined for the historic hamlet of Charlie near Shepshed. That almost suggests that the decision's been made and it's going to come in no matter what anybody does and says about it, doesn't it? It's destined. It's destiny. It's preordained and written in the stars. No matter what Richard Froggatt, who is a race mechanic, says. And what does he say? He says it will dominate the landscape, it will destroy decent agricultural land and trees and wipe out wildlife. Yeah, so this links into famine, right? This concept of famine. Like I just said, there's so much land that could be used to produce food just sitting there with nothing happening on it. So much of it in this country. Just take a train, go from Bristol to Manchester by way of, the Welsh border. All you see is empty fields, and all of that could have food growing on it. All of it could, right? No, we don't want to do that. We don't want to grow food in this country for the people who live here. We don't want to make our economy productive and benefit and geared towards the benefit of the people who live here. No. We need solar panels and 200 acres of them. And he says, Richard, it would be the wrong development in the wrong place, and the locals here are totally against it, as many visitors and villagers living on the outskirts are too. Yeah. The vast 1,000 plus acres of arable land are owned by a very wealthy family, not named, who are my nearest neighbors and made a fortune years ago from selling an ice cream business and then turning to building. They are not the applicants, but they want to cash in by renting their land to the solar farm company. Okay. Don't you think, Mail Online, that this very wealthy family who want to cash in by renting their land to the solar farm company would be worth mentioning by name? Maybe approaching for an interview? Maybe exploring their connections with politicians? Maybe they're put in backhanders or 20,000 a month through their philanthropic endeavors into the bank accounts of certain politicians. Don't you think that's what proper journalists should do? Let me see. Let's go for some names. Tracy Candola. Don't you think the readers would like to know that? Who they are? I do. But maybe I'm not the target audience of the Mail Online. I have a suspicion I'm not. So there's a lot of interviews and quotes from the residents saying things like, I like the idea of solar energy, but this should not be put in a rural place like this. It'll ruin the countryside. There are loads of old brownfield sites around where it could be built, not on green land. There's a good point here, which is that they could put it on the roofs of buildings, and they could put it on the roofs of homes and the buildings, the farm buildings that already exist. Just cover all them in solar panels. Like, why not? Why wipe out 200 acres worth? Everybody is objecting in Charlie, which is an ancient parish mentioned in the Domesday Book. People from outside the area, and we have heard today that historic England is also objecting. We have so much wildlife here, deer, birds, or prey, which will all be affected and will lose their habitat. There are so many public footpaths for lovely walks. So this is what's being done in the name of the worship of the Climatriarch, the Green Queen, right? Ruin the landscape, make it so people can't enjoy it, make sure it's not unproductive, make sure it is covered in a technology that is so unreliable, because we live in England where it's actually sunny right now, but you never know when it's going to be sunny. We get so much cloud here and overcast skies, and that is what's being done in the name of saving the planet and worship at the altar of the Green Queen, okay? This gentleman makes a good point. I'm not against solar energy, but not on farmland. We need to be sufficient in producing food. Yes, well said, completely. According to an objector from Markfield, there's currently an attempt underway to have Charnwood Forest registered as a UNESCO geopark due to its unique geology, flora, fauna, and biodiversity. So that could help save and protect this area of land. But then, what? That's the people moaning and complaining and pushing back against it. What about the benefits? Well, it's disappointing to see that people care more about protecting the view they have from their own properties than actually protecting the environment. Who is this mug? That's a Loughborough supporter. A Loughborough supporter? Are they talking about Loughborough as in the football team? What a weird way to report. It's disappointing to see such levels of short-sightedness and NIMBYism from some sections of the public. Like, this is the dumbness of this position, right? People think that protecting the environment is covering it in metal and technologies that can be ruined in a heavy hailstorm. Hailstorm. It can ruin and just destroy these panels, right? But they think that protecting the environment is to just cover it up in metal, effectively, and make sure nothing can live there, nothing can grow there, and no human beings can go there to enjoy it. That's protecting it. And that actually is very revelatory about what this whole movement is about. It really is just about getting rid of humans' ability to enjoy the environment. And you could shorten that sentence that I just said. It is about getting rid of humans. Right? That's what you find is at the root of it, and that's what I'm going to show you is at the root of it later today, if I can move through these articles at a faster clip. But the developer said it would power 16,580 homes a year and save the equivalent of 11,210 tons of carbon dioxide. Numbers, big numbers, yay! That's always the strategy here, to make people go along with numbers. Look, big number, big number. A spokesperson for Charnwood Borough Council said, "We have received a planning application for agricultural land. As a local planning authority, the council has a duty to look at all applications on their own merit, and this application will be considered in line with current planning regulations." But I have a feeling that because it says up here that it is destined, we may see this going through and being approved. Bit of a tragedy, but good luck to the people fighting back and speaking out against it. The Telegraph is telling us that Labour would fast-track countryside wind turbines and solar panels under net zero drive. So net zero, again, it's here. Starmer is pushing hard to win over rural voters, but Tories have accused him of planning to concrete over the countryside. Where could they be getting that idea from, I wonder? Labour has pledged to fast-track the building of wind and solar farms in the countryside, raising concerns rural communities will struggle to block the projects. Writing in the Telegraph, Daniel Zeichner, who's the shadow farming minister, added that the reforms would put money into the pockets of thousands of farmers and landowners by allowing them to profit from the generation of clean power. Well, isn't that good for the farmers and the landowners who are a minority in this country? And isn't that rubbish for the rest of us, the people who do not own land and the people who do not own farms? Great to know that they're supporting that minority of wealthy people who own stuff while further impoverishing the rest of us and getting in the way of our ability to ever own stuff. Great. Thanks for that. Looking forward to when Labour get elected this year. Mr. Zagner, the MP for Cambridge, said the proposals will protect the land, support farmers, and bring down bills for the farmers, whilst ensuring the agricultural sector achieves net zero. And I think net zero, they keep calling it net zero. Look, like I've said about the word internet, they tell you in the name, right? It's a net. It's a trap. A net is used to catch prey. A net is something you do not want to find yourself in. Right, so yes, they're saying net zero is in the net, the overall final bottom line figure, net zero. But these things are always told to you out in the open, and it's usually a second or a third layer down below the overt surface level meaning, where you find what they're actually going on about. So when they say net zero, they're telling you it's a trap. They're telling you it is to ensnare you and to enslave you. And net zero what exactly? Net zero people? Net zero carbon-based life forms? Net zero food produced in this country for the people who live here? Net zero jobs for the people who live here? So, it's a clever bit of marketing. Get it into people's minds. Confuse and obscure the meaning, so everyone has a different understanding of what net zero is, but they're just programmed to hear it as a good thing that we have to do, that we're committed to, that we have to make happen. But actually, if you ask 50 people what is net zero, they'll give you 50 different answers. And that is by design. That is on purpose. That is confuse people and get people unable to communicate and come to an understanding about what the thing means. Okay. And I'm giving you probably maybe a new perspective or another layer to what I think it means. I'm open to debate. I might be wrong about this. I don't think I am, but I might be. In this case, I think net zero is very, you got to look at exactly what it says. It's a net, it's a trap, and it's zero. It's zero productivity, zero comfort, zero wealth for the average person, zero jobs, zero food. It's zero, nothing, nada, zilch, zip. We must support the farmers as they diversify their income streams because we're forcing them to stop growing food for you and make use of land that is not suitable for food production by enabling them to build renewable energy and plug into the national grid faster. Yeah, okay. So you can tell this newspaper is aimed at farmers and people who know farmers and work with farmers perhaps and are related to farmers. Keir Starmer has pledged to bulldoze through opposition to development. So let's go back. Good luck to the people of this Leicestershire town. Keir Starmer wants to bulldoze through your resistance. He wants to fight the blockers to build more wind and solar farms. And the do-gooders, the kind of people who haven't delved or scratched below the surface of any of this stuff will cheer him on and think he's doing a really good thing and vote for him. And then, wonder where their countryside goes, why they can't travel further than 15 minutes from their home, why food is exorbitantly expensive, and why there's rolling blackouts and their energy is rationed through the use of smart meters and these kind of digital technologies. How did this happen? It's because you weren't listening to my podcast, you mugs. He also told the party conference in October that he will fight the blockers. I just read that bit. Labour plans to set councils binding targets for how quickly they approve green energy projects. So if you're a businessman now, you read this and you're going to be like, okay, I'm going to vote for Labour to get in, and he's going to force councils to rapidly and quickly approve any green energy project that I come up with. Yeah, see how this works? It has unveiled proposals to cut electricity bills for people living in communities near new wind farms. Bribe people to put up with the destruction of their environment. Good strategy. What that means is we then have to import food, which is more expensive and worse for the environment. Yeah, so this is a critic here saying it's undermining our food security. Absolutely it is. And just like our steel, we're going to be dependent on negotiating deals with other countries. Now, I think our parasite class, they like this because they get to go out and, they get to rub elbows and shoulders and charge to their expense account tickets to travel around and fly around and stay in hotels and all this stuff and strike deals. And the way they get money is through striking deals, and they can fly over and be an envoy to this other country and have a nice holiday and strike a deal and get a little payout, a little cut, a little commission for striking a deal. They get rich and wealthy, and the rest of us get some imported shit food from somewhere else that we don't want to eat. We should be putting solar panels on top of homes, factories, and warehouses instead. Yeah, I agree with that. Why not? If they work and they're useful, just roll it out and cover every single, there's no reason that a roof should not have them on. And if the roof, it's old and it needs repairing, repair it first and then stick them on. Build it into the roof. Can you not make a tile that does this? If this technology is so good, you would go full tilt into it and build it and just put it in everywhere if it was so good and it worked. But that's not what it's about. It's not about rolling out a technology that works. It's about lucrative deals, contracts, shaking hands and making money for a small group of people. who are already connected and wealthy. That's what it's all about, and getting the rest of us to cheer it on and accept our lives being made worse, our standard of living made worse as well. So this is actually I think a separate article, which I've never seen two articles published in this way before. But halfway down we have a separate article. I think this is all the Daniel Zeichner's words. So he says, the world has just experienced the hottest 12 months on record, while Brits have felt the steepest food price inflation in 45 years. And so to solve this, we're going to pay farmers to stop producing food and to build solar panels on their farms instead. What? Research shows, and that research is not linked. 1 second. Clear my throat there. Research shows that unusual weather patterns created by climate change are responsible for a third of our food price inflation. All right, what's the research? Link it, show it to us, let us have a look at it, let us review it. No, we can't show you. It's just the research. It's just the men in the white lab coats, the ones we paid to tell us that, the ones we paid to come up with research that shows this, they tell us. Oh, it's just so frustrating. Climate change is responsible for the food price inflation, for the cost of living crisis, for the staggering increase to British household bills. It's all because of the Green Queen, the Climatriarch. She decrees that your life has to be rubbish. And so it is. And so it is so. Yeah. So I didn't even read the rest of this because I just hated the way he started it off. Plus, this opening claim, is bunk. It's nonsense. And we're going to find out an article that explains why a little bit later in the show. But for now, the next one, Britain pays France £1.5 billion to import electricity as wind and solar fall short. The French are rubbing their hands. Isn't that anti-Semitism? As UK's imports a record amount of power from Europe. Maybe my joke was. Hope I don't get cancelled for that one. Britain imported a record amount of electricity from Europe last year as solar and wind farms struggled to generate sufficient energy in the wake of coal and nuclear power plant closures. So they're closing the coal and the nuclear power plants, and then they're saying, oh, we've got an energy crisis, and then they're just buying it from France. Because we have to, because we've got an energy crisis. But you caused the energy crisis because you shut the coal and the nuclear power plants down. No. This is climate change. So, this is again another example of the UK becoming dependent on its neighbours. Everything we produce here is being shut down. We're becoming totally dependent and totally hooked into these systems. So, you might have voted Brexit, you might have voted to leave the EU, but that means nothing because they're still shutting everything down here and forcing us to be dependent on the EU system over there to import our electricity and to import our food, right? So it was, the vote occurred, but it happened in name only. We're still very much that whole system over there, which is there was the League of Nations first, then there was the EU. The League of Nations was formed as a prototype for one world government, New World Order, going back to the likes of Cecil Rhodes and Lord Milner. Cecil Rhodes left his fortune to the production, to the funding of a secret society that would bring in a new world order that was overseen by the Anglos, and then that went into the League of Nations, and that fell apart and didn't work, and then they came up with the EU. And that EU system, that Tower of Babel system, I mean, look up the building of the EU. It looks like the Tower of Babel. That Babel system still has its hooks in this country via our, politicians and the political class and the parasite class. They're still subservient to that system, and they're still allowing it to destabilize and, just terrorize and traumatize and rape us of our way of life and our ability to be independent and to sustain ourselves and to be free of the yoke of this one world government technocratic anti-human system that's being rolled out. So Britain's capacity to generate electricity has been impacted by the closure of coal-fired power stations such as West Burton A in Nottinghamshire last March and nuclear stations such as Hinkley Point B in late 2022. Look at that. So we had 1956 up to 2000, we had all this nuclear capacity operating. And what did we see during that 50-year period? What did we see? Did Did people's wealth improve? Did their quality of living improve? Did the people living in 1956 have a much better access to a higher quality of life and a greater comfort of life by the year 2000? Yes, they did. They enjoyed a lot more. They enjoyed a greater deal of ability to travel and more material comforts, more access to information, more ability to have spare cash and to own a home. That went on a major increase during that time. And then since 2000, downhill for everyone, especially my generation and younger than me. Good luck if you want to own a home. The main way you can do it now, one of the main ways of doing it now is to dip into the bank of mum and dad, and the bank of mum and dad got what they got during this 50-year time here. And it's just a correlation, it's not causation, but it's interesting that what happened during that 50 years when nuclear was operating and on the rise and more of it was coming, and what's been happening in the last 20 years since they've been closing them down and getting rid of them, and where is that trend going to keep going? I'm just going to have another sip of coffee. All right. New wind and solar farms can compensate to some extent, but they are intermittent, meaning spells of low wind or heavy cloud, which is a phenomenon known as a Dunkelflaut, can reduce output. I've never heard this word Dunkelflaut before. Dunkelflaut. There's your new word of the day. The Met Office records have shown that wind speeds last year were below the 20-year average for 11 of the 12 months. Great. So yeah, we obviously need more wind farms. A National Grid spokesman said, as the UK continues to reduce its reliance on fossil fuels and increase the development of cleaner, more affordable and secure renewable energy, National Grid is delivering the biggest overhaul of the electricity grid in generations, the Great Grid Upgrade. The Great Reset? The Great Grid Reset Upgrade? To continue that cleaner, more affordable energy to communities in every part of England and Wales, helping us all reach net zero faster. And then they just to hammer the nail home, they repeated the word clean again in this final sentence. They really want to put this idea in your mind that is clean, scrub it clean. And that's largely what it's all about. These people pushing this agenda who are subservient to it, they don't like people. They think people are icky and sticky and full of germs, and they need to get rid of us and make the whole world clean, right? They're germaphobes, and I think they've been too invested in the germ theory and not cognizant of the fact that we call it the germ theory. It's a theory, which doesn't mean it's fact, doesn't mean it's proven, which means there's a lot of doubt and a lot of debate and a lot of discussion. But I think these people, these technocrats, these maniacs, they're kind of they're so disgusted by humans that we are kind of, wet and soft on the inside, and things come out of us, and they just want to get rid of all that and have nice, clean, sterile, silicon-based life forms that they can download their minds into. Okay, let's go. Moving on. So this is the Daily Skeptic, and this is why I do keep going back to the Daily Skeptic, because they do publish some truth, despite being Zionist in nature. They do publish a good bit of truth and good information and reporting on subjects such as the Climatriarch. So 2023 was not the hottest year on record for over 70% of the world's population, data show. A deep dive into figures published by the US National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration reveals that the hottest ever claims did not apply to large areas of the world, including Asia, Europe, North America, Oceania, East North Pacific, Hawaiian region, Arctic, and Antarctic. Investigative science writer Larry Hamlin notes in the science blog What's Up With That? At least 58% of the Earth's land surface, where 73% of the world's population lives, did not experience the highest ever recorded average temperature anomaly. So before moving on, I would ask you, think about you and your area and the weather patterns that you've seen and enjoyed this year. Has it really changed that much? Has it changed more than it did when you were young? Really that drastically? Or are you still having the same cycles and the same, with a bit of variation, because it always varies, doesn't it? I would say I've seen the same weather that I've always seen my whole life, except there's a lot more lines in the sky now. than they used to be. But apart from that, the temperatures are the same. Got a bit of snow, got a bit of sun, you know. Still, I think the best summer to my living memory was the first summer of when lockdown started. And that always stands out to me as a kind of anomaly. Like, what are the odds that the year they lock us down was like the best, warmest, hottest, loveliest summer for a long time? Like, what are the odds of that happening? You'd almost have to believe in coincidences, you know? But anyway, on with the article. Hamlin states in 2016 that 2016 was a very strong El Nino year, as was 2023. In fact, if one looks at the accurate satellite record, it can be observed that heat increases over the last 25 years are mainly confined around strong El Nino years, suggesting natural influence rather than human-produced carbon dioxide is responsible for any observed warming. Oh, they don't like it when you say that. It's just naturally occurring cycles. Okay, everything in nature operates on a cycle. There's the day-night cycle. The tides go in, they come out. The precession of the equinoxes in the night sky, the way the stars cycle through on a 10,000 year or so cycle, and they come back to exactly where they were. So everything in nature exists in a cycle, including the weather and the weather patterns and the temperature changes. And it's an extreme level of hubris to think that we are the ones causing it because I didn't wash my yogurt cart and put it in the recycling, and now the weather is trying to kill me. You know, it's so solipsistic. It's so everything revolves around me, and I am the god of my reality, and my actions alone are the only thing that matter. You know, it's like, get over yourself. You're not that significantly, hugely important that you can change the climate, right? Because you're driving a car or because you're having a child. But a lot of alarmism, you know, is wrapped up in this. And I think this kind of reporting, I really enjoyed this article, this kind of reporting really helps to diffuse that sense of panic and alarmism, which might cause you to get a 3D printer and start plotting to murder people with nail bombs, as in the case that we read about earlier. But in the UK, the Met Office claimed a record high temperature of 40.3 degrees Celsius on July the 19th, 2022 from a measuring device halfway down a military runway. At around the time of the 60-second spike, the runway was in use by 3 Typhoon fighter jets. I mean, if you're measuring your record high temperatures on military runways where jets are taking off, then I don't think I'm going to trust or believe your conclusions based upon that particular bit of data gathering. And this happens, I believe, pretty frequently. A lot of these sensors are next to runways. And what do you have at runways? You have massive amounts of jet fuel being burned and no cover, and tarmac absorbing and bouncing that heat, right? So these are the kind of things you got to be aware of before you just blindly sign up to the worship of the Green Queen. Hamlin also casts further reasonable doubt on the US figure by publishing the graph below, taken from the US Climate Reference Network database. And this shows very little warming can be seen over nearly 2 decades. Yeah, 2 decades, not a huge amount of variance or change, really, is there? Well, no. And there is in the short term. And you can see that you could zoom in on this and kind of doctor the range and the scales that you're showing in order to give a picture of a scary hockey stick type spike. But if you actually look at it, zoom out, look at the long term, you can see that not that much is changing, despite what we're being told, what our children are being taught, what the characters on the TV shows that we like to watch repeat and say all the time, and the talking heads on our magical Black Mirror telescreens. As the Daily Skeptic has noted in the past, accurate temperature measurement barely got started before 1900, and widespread media claims that 125,000 year records are being broken, a little more than wishful thinking by those seeking to collectivize society using the net zero weapon. Yeah, and that's a really key point, that this net zero weapon, as they've said here, as is this Chris? Yeah, Chris Morrison has said here, is using to bring in collectivism. It's used to bring in communitarianism, to bring in socialism, to bring in communism. These sort of sacrifice yourself for the greater good. Ignore your individual needs and your aspirations to live a fulfilling life and to achieve and create and produce and contribute. Ignore all that because the Green Queen, the Climatriarch demands it be so. Great blog here, What's Up With That? Which claims to be the world's most viewed site on global warming and climate change. I don't know if that's true, but I've been here a few times, and I think the work is pretty level-headed. And this is about Drax carbon capture, which could cost bill payers £40 billion. So this is Drax has received permission from the government to fit carbon capture technology to its wood-burning power plant in a project that could cost bill payers more than £40 billion. This is one of the most expensive energy projects in the world. The project could add about 1.7 billion to energy bills every year. Whew. Wow. If the company acts on plans to fit all 4 of its biomass units, a total of more than 43 billion, that could be the bill. And but this 43 billion that we're going to spend, it's worth it because it could save the UK economy up to 15 billion between 2030 and 2050. Now, I'm not so good with maths. I never have been. Numbers are not my strong suit. Data interpretation is not my strong suit. But doesn't paying 43 billion in order to save 15 billion over a 20-year period seem completely fucking retarded? Could just be me, though. Maybe that's my inexpert understanding of statistics and numbers and how they work. The government is expected within days to extend a lucrative bill payer-backed subsidy scheme that last year paid Drax more than 600 million to burn trees for electricity until the end of the decade. Okay, so this is linking into the deforestation issue that the teenager was talking about and getting fed up with. One of the issues in his concerns that I think is legit. Why are we paying a company 600 million to burn trees for electricity, and not replacing those trees? I hope we're replacing those trees, but I don't know. So not only would Drax need to recoup the capital cost, which they have said will be billions, there will also be increased operating costs, not least because carbon capture itself is an energy intensive process. So in order to save energy and save the planet and reduce energy usage, we need to increase our energy usage in order to capture the carbon that's going to help us save and decrease the energy. Don't think about it too much. Just give us money. In other words, some of Drax's generation will have to be used to power the carbon capture plant instead of being sold. Now, this whole carbon capture technology, we need technology that captures carbon. This technology already exists, and it's not really a technology because it wasn't created by humans. It's called plants and trees, right? It's called healthy soil. Healthy soil and plants and trees take carbon out of the atmosphere because plants and trees don't grow. What they do is they assemble themselves using carbon that they get from the air and the atmosphere around them. So it's not like coming out of the ground. The material, it's not coming out, even though it looks like it's coming out of the ground. What's actually happening is carbon's coming in from the air, and that's kind of building it, and that's what leads to the growth, right? So having more trees, having more plants, encouraging people to have gardens, to build, to use this land that's just there empty all over the country for planting trees, that would be offsetting this, would be capturing carbon the way it's supposed to happen in nature, as well as regenerative farming with ruminant livestock animals. The process of them eating and then pooping out their waste onto the grass and the ground, that goes into the soil, fills it with microorganisms, and that captures carbon as well. That sequesters carbon in the ground and in the soil, right? So there are natural creator provided mechanisms to keep it all stable, to keep it all in balance, and it is all stable and in balance. There's areas of forest growth that have been booming and growing over Europe in the last few decades. The coral reef, the Great Barrier Reef, is growing and expanding again. You never see that in the mainstream news though, but it is. So nature will balance and offset these things and keep it sensible. It's these huge corporations coming in that are making huge profits, producing and buying and selling toxic, nasty products to us. They're the ones who all this serves, and companies like Drax who win big lucrative contracts to do all this stupid stuff that doesn't help, but they get a big payday, and they get to give a little side kickback to the politicians who approve it and give the green light and stamp this kind of stuff to happen. That's what's actually going on here. And so check out What's Up With That, good blog to learn more about the way it's really working and why it's all a load of bullshit. Back with the Daily Skeptic. Reflections on 2023, the surge in net zero skepticism, silly climate activists, and how to beat the blob. So another good article here, a reflection on the year, because we just started 2024. Nice to see that there's more net zero skepticism on the rise, okay? And that's exploded and is now a fixture of the mainstream. So good. That's great news. It's assuring, but it doesn't mean we should give up. I still think it's on us to go out and talk to people about this and reinforce that and encourage it and pull more people into this movement, which is calling out net zero for what it is. But good that Daily Skeptic is putting it out there. I think they have a decent sized readership and viewership these days. Cancellation on steroids. Power is doubling down on its predominant ideologies and consolidating with unprecedented attacks against the conventions of one-time liberal democracy, RIP. Governments throughout the West have given themselves the power to impose increasingly draconian interventions to police speech under the pretext of protecting the public from online harms. Scary harms online. In 2023, the concepts of disinformation and misinformation fully escaped the dank confines of the blob's nucleus and are now a cancer, a mutation of the principle that might is right. The doublespeak extends from passing off official lies as unimpeachable truth to claiming that this protects democracy. Yeah, cancellation and free speech. So the way to fight back against this is more speech and more they can't cancel everybody, right? I don't know how long my channel is going to be here. I'm actually starting to think about backing it up on some other platforms, Odyssey, Rumble, these kind of places. I think it's going to be a good move for me now that my audience is creeping up and getting a little bit bigger. I'm going to have to back up my efforts, because this could get shut down at any minute, particularly with the things that I like to talk about. So cancellation is happening, but all these alternative platforms are popping up and they need to be supported. They need to be used. Rockfin is another really good one. I applied to Rockfin to get my channel on there, but I didn't have enough followers. But that was back when I had like 10 or 15. So now that I've got a few hundred more than that, I might reapply and see if I can get my stuff on Rockfin, and then I will be encouraging people to go over there and support Rockfin. It's kind of like Netflix, but for uncensored content. People who will speak about things that matter, who are not afraid to stand up and call out stupid nonsense, stupid bullshit. Rockfin is a really good platform to go to, and a way to fight cancellation. But the main way to fight cancellation is to just keep speaking out, keep talking, keep pointing out what you see and what's going on, and providing the evidence and the sources and the references and the books and the materials to back up these claims, right? Because if you don't have the evidence, you're just going to be dismissed with a wave of the hand and the conspiracy theory label. Okay. The UNFC COP process and climate alarmism is a busted flush. So this is attempts to consolidate the climate agenda at all levels of government using increasingly high-pitched rhetoric are increasingly falling flat on their face, which is great news. The world is not decarbonizing. Reduced consumption in the West has been matched by growth in Asia, where consumption has tripled since 2000. So this is another aspect that I think is very much worth dwelling on. Okay, maybe you think you're saving the planet here in the West, but are you going to say that we need to go over to Asia and prevent them and force these kind of things on them as well? And if the answer is no, we can't force it on them, then why are you allowing it to be forced on you and your children and the future generations of your family? And it can't be done in one place and not another place, right? The COVID thing, the great scam of 2020 was rolled out globally and everybody agreed on it miraculously. Different countries, cultures and languages all agreed on this one thing, right? But we can't all agree on net zero and decarbonization and shifting to renewable energy sources, can we? No. That just has to be the West and Europe and North America that's doing all that. That's shutting down their ability to produce resources and food and hooking them into centralized systems of imports. And it only has to happen here. All those other countries can reject that, and they're allowed to. You know, it doesn't make any sense. It's incoherent. You got to really ask questions and dive into why that is. You know, if the whole world can agree on invisible particles that make you sick, and the need to lock you down and shut down the businesses and inject you with experimental products that have never before been used and approved, then the whole world surely should be able to agree on the necessity of net zero and decarbonization. But they can't, because it's a scam and it's only being used on a certain group of people in a certain area. Are you in that area? If you are, then you need to be aware of the scam, right? So here, coal, oil, and gas accounted for a total of 81.8% of the energy demand, and 14% came from renewable sources. So not very promising. So a good article here with a good kind of overview of what happened in 2023, and I think there's a kind of sense of optimism moving into 2024, that the tides are turning and the things are shifting a little bit more in favor of waking up to these agendas. But these awakenings have happened before, and it seemed like, oh, people are, but you got to be vigilant. You got to be consistently questioning, consistently learning. You don't just, okay, I figured it all out now. I can sit back and go back to, watching Netflix. It's a consistent, ongoing thing that you need to be committed to and involved in, because there are, I'm sure, many deceits still wrapped up in this whole movement and this whole awareness. There's many things we're not looking at. So being aware and keeping up to date is very critical. And that's what I'm trying to help you do on this channel. A great bit here about the blob is dead. The most ridiculous outfit in the world is the World Economic Forum. We should take some comfort in the fact that it has spent countless millions on the most self-destructed PR campaign in history. But, and this is to my point that I just made, the WEF is just one of countless organizations and agencies which we should not obsess over. Moreover, the blob is a liquid. It can pour itself and its unflushable turds, such as our former PMs, through any crevice into any institution. It can reconstitute itself, whether or not it is the World Economic Forum. We need to see the blob as a tendency, not a particular organization with particular attachments to ideologies. As well as being liquid, it's fickle. It has no real form or structure or agency. It can be defeated, therefore, not through mere exposure and humiliation, but by us organizing ourselves in our own interests, and that is the blob's worst nightmare. So in other words, community, strong communities, knowing the people you live near, knowing what skills you share in your local community, what things you can produce, how you can take care of each other and contribute to a local economy, having a strong family around you, having good values, moral behavior, having high trust. That is what the blob does not want. It wants people fractured and atomized and divided and conquered and sitting at home, doom scrolling in their little echo chamber, feeling impotent, feeling weak, feeling scared. And so if you're in that situation, you're exactly where they want you to be. And if you think, if you're black-pilled and all hope is lost and there's nothing we can do about it, then that's exactly what they want you to think. And you're going to be kind of useless moving forward because you've already given up on a heart, soul level, right? So deep belief in the transformative power of humans to adapt and change and overcome and be resilient together, building relationships, skill sharing, reaching out to people around you, checking in on that neighbor, see if they're okay, and getting to know the people in your local vicinity and figuring out, where do we go for food? Where do we go for water? Who's got a good store of information? Who knows how to fix some electrical wiring or do a bit of plumbing? This kind of knowledge is what we need to kind of turn back to, because our big huge institutions are pushing this net zero nonsense, which can't fail in the long run, but it will take a bunch of people out with it. All the people who are loyal to it, who believe in it, who have joined that cult and are worshipping the Green Queen, the Climatriarch, all those people are going to be devoured, and they're going to be pulled under with the riptide when the ship sinks, and they're just going to drown and suffocate, right? So those people who have friends, community, loved ones, high trust, high moral groups around them of people who are competent and can get things done and know how to do things, they're going to be the people who move forward in time to survive and do well in the world, I think. So good time to get building community, in other words. Okay, this is Ian Davis. I just thought after a big rant, I'm going to have a sip of coffee. Please bear with me. Okay, we're about at the halfway point, I think, through the episode. And this is, I think, probably the best resource that I'm going to give you today in this episode. And as usual, all the links of everything I'm looking at is going to be down underneath the video in the little box there. Not right now, but once the show ends, I'll copy all those links over there for you, and you can explore them at your leisure till your heart's content and get learnified. That's what it's all about. So this Ian Davis is a UK blogger and author of books. And I love books, as you know, on this channel. That's what we love here, and we love to read and learn from and look at and share and talk about. And Ian Davis is a really great guy. He's a podcaster. He works with Whitney Webb, Johnny Vedmore, these kind of investigative journalists. Ian Davis is published on Off Guardian website. And he's put together this 3-piece blog, which comes in 3 parts, which, let me see, part 1, part 2, part 3. They're all linked below, and this is a really fantastic resource. It is incredible. I don't think you could count yourself informed and knowledgeable on the topic of that we're talking about today unless you've read all this stuff. And I haven't finished reading all 3 yet. You know, I've kind of skimmed them, got some of the nuggets out, but what a piece of work. Really incredibly good, really well referenced, well done, well written, easy to read. You can't really believe in and belief is the operative word. You can't really believe in the climate change narrative after you've read this, because there's so many holes, so much tomfoolery and skullduggery going on with the way the reports and the narrative is being constructed. There's a lot of very intelligent scientists questioning this narrative. And of course, they're never on the television, they're never on the BBC, they're never in the Telegraph or the Guardian, or because there's certain things that are just unquestionably accepted as the gospel truth. And these outlets that do not question the climate narrative, the climate change narrative, they have to be doing it willingly. They have to be deliberately misleading you, because that is part of their agenda to push this narrative. Okay, now this is where people like Ian Davis come along and just earn my deep sense of love and respect and appreciation, because they ask the questions and they question it and they dive in and they do the deep digging into the nitty-gritty of what is actually going on and where is this narrative coming from, and does the actual scientific process prove what is being said here. And so what a good resource. And let's have a look and just read a few quotes from it here. So he starts off talking about the COP28. And this is from December last year, this article. At the 28th Conference of Parties, COP28, convened by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. The British aristocrat, political lobbyist, and climate activist King Charles III. He said, "I've spent a large proportion of my life trying to warn of the existential threats facing us over global warming, climate change, and biodiversity loss. The dangers are no longer distant risks. How can we bring together our public, private, philanthropic, and NGO sectors ever more effectively so that they all play their part in delivering climate action, each contemplating the unique strength of the others? Public finance alone will never be sufficient." How? Yeah. So the money we extort from you and take from you by threat of imprisonment and violence, that's not enough. We also need anyone with any kind of wealth to also hand their wealth over. So this is a wealth transfer, and it's part of telling you really that there's going to be super uber hyper wealthy minority, and everyone else has nothing. Is the plan, right? So they want to squeeze the middle class. They want to squeeze the upper middle class down into the ranks of the working slave class. Is basically what he's admitting to and saying here, and that is part of the plan. So two things that stand out in Charles' speech: the warnings of the dire consequences of global warming, and his suggested solutions all have something to do with the global public-private partnership, which I know is something Ian Davis has reported on in great detail and written very good work about. So Charles has long warned us of climate catastrophe. It was 14 years ago when he reliably informed us that we had just 8 years left to save the world. So when you look at the history of this movement, you see that they're constantly making these apocalyptic end times predictions, and they never happen, and they never come to pass. And yet they just keep pushing it out further and further. And next year, and oh no, next year. And yeah, so 14 years ago, he told us we have 8 years left to save the world. And yet, and as a side tangent, and all these people, these politicians, these wealthy industrialists, they're still investing in beachfront property and lakeside, well, not lakeside, I suppose, but beachfront property at least. They still want their home overlooking the sea. So they're not bothered about sea levels rising to engulf these valuable properties. The value of that property still remains high. And if there was any truth to sea levels rising, then the risk analysts who work very hard would be like, no, that's not a good investment. We don't want to put money there. But that's never happened. That value of that property is still very high because sea level rising is a lot of nonsense, and it's not going to happen beyond the natural cycles of what we've seen it happen throughout the recorded history. So the claimed justification for a new global economic model is, of course, why the people we might call the parasite class are so eager to push climate alarm. If we look at the alleged solution of sustainable development goals, they have far more to do with global economic, political, financial, and social control than they do with addressing climate change. The global transformation of pretty much everything is based upon the claim that global warming is leading to dangerous climate change, and we must all collectively do something about it. Nevertheless, even if we accept the selective collective responsibility demanded of us, when we look at the scientific evidence, there are many reasons to doubt the alleged basis for any of it, not least because the foundational underlying theory of anthropogenic global warming is eminently questionable. Ian Davis brings our attention to the South African economist Rob Jeffrey, who achieved some brief fame after successfully gaining his PhD at the age of 80 years old. Now, let's just pause there for a moment. Good on that fella. Well played, earning a PhD at the ripe age of 80. Just goes to show that age is a state of mind. And that makes me want to read it even more. But what he said, Ian Davis tells us, his remarkable financial dissertation is one of the few published documents to collate a large body of scientific evidence questioning both AGW theory and the prevailing climate alarm narrative in one resource. This article series is partly based on some of his finding, but cannot hope to do his work justice. Reading his paper is highly recommended, and I will link to his paper underneath this video so you can go and read it. It's about 212 pages, but it's a PhD. And he gained the PhD, which means he successfully defended this piece of work in order to be awarded his PhD, which means it is a damn good piece of work that people couldn't kick out of the PhD room. I don't exactly know how that process works, and I know that there is some fascinating history behind the whole PhD mode and model and modality and of knowledge and awarding each other these letters after our names. I know it doesn't come necessarily from a place of good intentions, but there's something to be said for an 80-year-old getting up and doing this and successfully defending it and being awarded the PhD, isn't there? So a little caveat here, the article you are reading does not represent climate change denial. No one who seriously questions anthropogenic global warming theory, the claimed climate crisis, or the resultant climate alarm denies either that climate changes or that the planet is in a general warming phase. Keyword there, phase. Nor do skeptics deny the potential for climate change to have a significant impact on the environment and the global population. This article is not intended to be a rebuttal of the consensus anthropogenic global warming climate science. It is a reference to a small percentage of the science that questions the consensus climate science. Much, but not all of this evidence is cited by Rob Jeffrey in his thesis. The objective is to hopefully stimulate open, honest debate. That discussion should also consider the United Nations claimed justification for its sustainable development agenda. Wonderful resource here and incredibly detailed and comprehensive, and hats off to Ian Davis because he really does fantastic work. I've read a couple of his books. The pseudo pandemic one up here I really recommend. You get it for free when you subscribe to his newsletter. I mean, what's not to love about free books, right? And all you need to do is subscribe to the newsletter, and you can immediately unsubscribe if you don't want the newsletter and still just get the free book, right? And read that, because that in itself is an incredibly, and he got it out during the thick of it while it was all happening. So brilliant resource there and very well referenced. So I would just want to put that on people's radar for those who are willing to learn and get educated. I was going to say edumified. That's definitely not a word and doesn't even make sense. But what kind of things does he cover in this series? Understanding anthropogenic global warming theory, a whole section on that. Questioning the consensus, a whole section there. Questioning the greenhouse effect. The theory physical reality problem. Yeah. So what I really love and what I think he's done really well here is that he's framed it as a conversation, and the sections are all titled questioning, right? Because why shouldn't you be able to question the consensus? If it is so strong and so robust and so established and backed up by scientific evidence and scientific process, you should be able to question it. The questioning, if it's true, then it's anti-fragile, and the questioning and the challenging will make it stronger, okay? This is why anytime there's an attempt to control speech, to punish, to shut down a debate, to paint one side of a debate as crazy right-wing conspiracy theory, terrorist, nutjob lunatics, that is because the proposition and the debate under scrutiny is not based on truth. Because if you inquire and interrogate truth, it will actually strengthen the claim because you will prove it to be so. Right? So any organization, any group, any movement, any theory or idea that is beyond questioning has to be rooted in false, fake, nonsense, bullshit, lies, and deceit. And that is why they put so much effort into preventing and avoiding just open, honest interrogation, debate, and questioning of the issue at hand. So this is part 2. Great little bit here. With the 2023 publication of a series of policy briefs called Our Common Agenda, the United Nations announced that questioning the climate science is tantamount to hate speech. What did I just say? As we discussed in part 1, the legacy media has already adopted editorial policies that rule out any possible questioning of the climate science orthodoxy. Thus, the internet is an important remaining public square where people can still ask questions, which is what it's all about. As Richard Grove says, as long as there's a question mark on my keyboard, then all hope is not lost, and we can and do have cause to be optimistic because we can ask questions and we can learn. So, Ian Davis, therefore the UN asserted efforts must be made to censor any and all skepticism expressed online. Yep. And they say this. The UN say that that they have to do this. The UN made absolutely no mention of the fact that many of the people it calls climate science denialists are scientists, including climate scientists. By omission and by misrepresenting anti-scientific statements about consensus as scientific arguments, the UN spreads disinformation globally. Yes, that is absolutely spot on. And, you know, my friend pointed this out to me. Whenever they put UN in front of something and you read it as un, right? And you can be like, oh, they probably have like an uninformation, a UN or UN charity would be an uncharity. I think that's the example we had in our last stream. So the UN charity, the uncharity, which means it does the opposite of charity and what a charity should do. I wouldn't be surprised if the UN had some sort of information panel or team or department, and it was the UN information and it was the uninformation, because that's what they're giving you. It's not disinformation. It's not misinformation. It's not even malinformation. It's uninformation. It's the opposite of information. So topics in this part 2, more questioning of the experimental proof of anthropogenic global warming theory, questioning warming, questioning the impact of human CO2 emissions, questioning the computer models. That's really important to question the models because, well, it's part of scientism. It's like, oh, the computer model has spoken and tells us that we all must eat crickets and not use our central heating and ride around on bicycles, you know, and not have children because the God of the AI, the machine, tells us to. The computer model decrees it, and that's the worship of these models and the data the data and the conclusions they reach. It becomes a religious thing that people believe in and they have faith in, and then it's not science anymore, is it? It's moved into a cult-like behavior of worship of the white coat and the science computer model. So very important section there on questioning the computer models. And that's it for part 3. No, sorry, part 2. Part 3 is here, and this is a really great point, which is climate science does not exist in a vacuum. It is central to the global political push towards so-called sustainable development. While the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, so let's use the rule here, we've got unsustainable development, which tells you a lot more about what it actually is than what they want you to think it is. Unsustainable development. The plan they're rolling out is unsustainable. It will fall. It will collapse under the weight of its own hypocrisy and just ambition and hubris. So it is unsustainable. But these unsustainable development goals aim to transform every facet of our polity, economy, and our lives. They are solely based upon anthropogenic global warming theory. Okay, so if the anthropogenic global warming theory collapses and is proven to be bunk, then all this unsustainable development goal nonsense being pushed by the United Nations is also therefore bunk. And the people at the top, they know this. They can't not be aware of this research. This is why they have to class it as misinformation and disinformation and clamp down with censorship, with deplatforming, with throttling channels, with fudging the numbers on views and subscribers, with deleting channels and forcing people out. But with you only silence the man who, if you're scared of what he has to say, because your position is morally bankrupt and intellectually bankrupt. So you need to silence the guy who's telling the truth. But you can't. You can't silence the truth. It always comes up. For everyone I've seen, I'm motivated by the people I've seen deplatformed and silenced on this platform, YouTube, GulagTube. Because when I saw them getting deplatformed and getting their accounts scrubbed, and I went into their material and I saw that, wow, they're just providing evidence and resources and for further learning, and they're the ones getting kicked off this platform, well, I better speak up. Right? And if I get kicked off here, I would hope somebody out there in the audience would take that as a sign that they need to start speaking up. If you're not speaking up already, I would like to think that we pass that torch along, right? And so you can see why they've got to be so protective and defensive over this anthropogenic global warming theory. And again, that word theory popping up to give us a little wink and a nod and a hint that this is not factual based in reality or evidence or nature or creation. It is just a theory. And theories, germ theory, the theory of evolution, and now the anthropogenic global warming theory. Keep an eye out for this word theory, because in many cases they throw it around, but they kind of browbeat you and as though it's fact. And a theory is not fact. A theory is very different from a fact. Ian Davis continues, if SDGs are going to be accepted by the global population, then we all must unquestionably believe AGW theory. Now, it might turn out that AGW theory is correct, and SDGs are warranted and valuable and will protect us, are for our benefit. But until you go in and read the criticisms of this theory, you can't really consider yourself informed and coming at it from a place of logic and rational acceptance, right? Until you go in and question and understand the theory and both sides of it and make your own mind up, you're just taking it on faith and it's belief and it's a religion. And that is what I think the Green Queen, the Climatriarch wants is she wants you to worship, sacrifice on her altar. She wants you to bow down unquestioningly and just beg for forgiveness and beg her to let you live in her precious Gaia, her wonderful planet Earth that you must save by sacrificing yourself and your children and your children's children. That's the Green Queen and what the Climatriarch wants. So this is part 3, and part 3 is questioning the bias of the IPCC. Great. Always good to question bias. We've got questioning anthropogenic global warming theory related climate alarm. And we have also got, I thought there was another section down here. Yeah. Questioning the legitimacy of the climate science. And questioning the theory skeptics bias. Excuse me a minute. Had a sudden nose itch there. I think that might be it for part 3. Yes, but wow. This itself should probably be put in a book. I would like to have a physical copy of this. I might have to print it out myself. But Ian Davis, great guy, really good. I've seen many interviews with him. I believe he used to work in nursing for many years. So big heart, clearly cares about people and humans and humanity in general, and is really doing the great work with his journalism. Worth supporting, worth sending, a few pounds to each month. If you are able to do that, £3, that's less than the price of a cup of coffee, less than a pint of beer. There's not a lot you can get for £3 these days, but you can support fantastic journalism such as Ian Davis. And here is the 253-page thesis by the 80-year-old gentleman, Robert Llewellyn Jeffrey, June 2022, assessing the actual cost of alternative electricity generating technologies in South Africa in line with its economic development requirements. So that is there, linked below if you want to dive into that and really, really get fact up. All right, so we got an article from Spiked next. This is about why the Europeans are rising up against net zero. In 2023, punitive green policies pushed the public to breaking point. Yeah, so this is just another article about how the tides are turning and maybe cause for celebration. Obviously, we can't relax. We can't give, we can't release. We got to keep applying pressure. Doesn't mean the game is won and anything by no means. But it's just a cause for optimism, cause for reassurance. Nice to know you're not the only one out there who sees through this nonsense, and that there are other people kind of wising up to it, becoming aware of it. And now is a pretty good time to start speaking out and getting on that wave and helping bring more people in, right? It's not always easy to speak out when everybody around you and everything seems against you. But, this could kind of signify that now might be a good time to kind of plant your flag. And the more people who do that, the more resistance that is made public and made known, the more instances of people going, I see you and I see what you're up to and I'm not accepting it, I'm not standing for it and I don't want it and I'm saying no to it and I do not consent to it, the better, I think. Telegraph, we have net zero will hamper the West and boost China. Yeah, so as I said, why isn't the whole world in agreement on these things? Why is it that China and India and Vietnam and these kind of places are still burning coal, digging it up, still relying on fossil fuels, still drilling oil, still buying it from Russia? They're allowing to develop and grow economically. They're allowed to have cash economies. In the case of Vietnam, at least, they're allowed to open businesses, and it's just a thriving, bustling, entrepreneurial kind of culture over there. They are allowed to get married and have children. They are not allowed to transform their children from one sex into another. And they're thriving and they're growing, right? Meanwhile, in the West, we're living under this net zero nonsense and having jobs taken away from us, having the countryside ripped away from us and destroyed, having our ability to access food, clean food, all that stuff is going on in one place and not the other. Now, if this was truly a global threat, if truly Mother Nature and Gaia was under threat, wouldn't the whole world agree on it like they did during the great scam of 2020? So, questions. Always worth considering. The expose. Experts warn the World Economic Forum's net zero goals will kill 4 billion people. So, pretty big numbers there and quite alarming and scary. How would you have time? 2 hours, nice. The World Economic Forum and its fellow unelected globalist leaders are pushing for governments around the world to phase out fossil fuels. Right? Governments around the world. Is it governments around the world? or is it just governments in North America and Europe? Huh? Klaus? Leading experts have spoken out against their plans and are warning the public that the WEF's net zero goal to eliminate fossil fuels will result in the deaths of over 4 billion people or more. I'm sure they're 100% aware of that. The net zero target to end fossil fuel use is part of the WEF and UN's Agenda 2030 and Agenda 2050 plans for humanity and involves dramatically reducing fossil reliance by 2030 and completely eliminating it by 2050. The WEF continues to push its agenda and has been calling for taxpayers worldwide to pay $3.5 trillion a year, so pay for your own death. You have to fund your own death. You know, you can't. Well, they're not just going to do it to you for. They're not just going to kill us all off for free. It's expensive to genocide people. Sheesh, come on. What do you think they are? Wealthy so-called elite parasites with massive bank accounts and huge funding and backing from wealthy families who sell us Tetra Paks and Pepsi. Shh, come on. Wake up. They insist this $3.5 trillion bill is necessary to fund the noble global power in order to meet the globalist organization's goal of decarbonizing the planet. What do they mean by that? Starvation. Danish statistician Bjorn Lomborg is just one who has warned that ending fossil fuel use will lead to the deaths of around half the world's population through starvation alone. 4 billion people are dependent on fossil fertilizer for food, he notes. Without that, 4 billion will starve to death. It is time to call out the astoundingly destructive and misanthropic campaigners, he declared. Yep. Exactly. And I think that's deliberate and that's not accidental. And the farmers in places like Germany and like the Netherlands are realizing this, and that's why they're pushing back, and that's why they're clogging up the streets and protesting. You know, and really they should just go back to farming. They should. I don't know. I don't know what they should do. But like the food needs to be made and grown. So this is something I think many people need to get involved with, or would get involved with if they were more aware of the actual peril and the rickety state of our systems and that we rely upon. Like I mentioned before, coming back to a local focus, right? And who's around you, who has a garden, who can grow some potatoes, who can grow some onions, who can grow some leeks, who can keep some chickens, who can keep some ducks, who can keep some rabbits for meat. What this reliance on importing and these overcomplicated, unnecessary systems, bringing all this stuff in from so far away, that's going to go. I think they want it to go because that can't be done on with Teslas. They can't be done on solar power and wind power. It can only be done with fossil fuels. So if they're saying they want to get rid of fossil fuels, what they're saying is they want to get rid of the whole intercontinental supply chain that you rely on for your smashed avocado on toast and your banana smoothies, you know, if you live in the UK, because we can't grow bananas and avocados here. So getting rid of fossil fuels is getting rid of food. And if there are not local producers of food stepping in to pick up that slack, to grow things that grow. And actually, it's better for you to eat the things that grow in the place you're from anyway, because it just makes sense that your ancestors were living on that diet, and you're going to be more attuned to that diet. You know, you shouldn't have to ship in this vast concoction of plants and product and from all over the world. You know, I need my almonds, and I need my bananas, and I need my avocados, and I need my tomatoes. It's like, no, why don't you just try eating the plants that grow around the place where you live and where you're from, and see how that goes? Because you're going to be more attuned to that, right? So a resurgence, a renaissance, a regeneration of farming and knowledge and growing food is really going to be the antidote, the solution, and the buffer against this insane plan to get rid of fossil fuels, which means getting rid of food for the majority. So that's what this article is telling us and laying it out and how it works. And Bjorn Lomborg, I believe he's been interviewed by the likes of Jordan Peterson, if I'm not mistaken. And he kind of advocates a kind of capitalism which is geared towards spending that does the most good and solving the highest value problems, something like that. I'm not sure, but worth listening to and looking up. We have another guy here called Neil Record who reported, if we literally just stopped using fossil fuels and did without the natural resources on which the world, its economies and populations depend, most likely 6 billion people would die within a year. And I think, again, that is the plan. I think that is the goal. I think they know that, and that's why they're pushing it. But again, not pushing it everywhere, just pushing it in a very specific place, in a few specific places where the majority of people who live there and are from there are a specific, kind of person. And that's what seems to be happening. The domestic supply would be shut down. Oh, so this is about gas. So this is giving a kind of timeline. If we just switched off the fossil fuels tomorrow, there's a timeline of what would happen. It's kind of grim reading. Starvation begins on day 25, and by day 300, after a year, another 2 billion have starved or frozen to death, leaving around 2 billion left alive. So it's pretty grim. A year without oil, right? Murder and mayhem. It's grim reading, but this is what they're doing in the name of the Green Queen, the Climatriarch. And this gentleman I didn't know about, and so I was happy to have him, to learn about him. And this is Meadows, Dennis Meadows. So this, who wrote this? I don't know. Meadows is a member of the World Economic Forum and has repeatedly suggested that mass reductions in the number of humans on Earth would help the organization reach its green agenda. Dennis Meadows, who is a celebrated member of the WEF, has called for a staggering 86% reduction in the population of humans. Sounds to me like the best way to do that would be convince them to stop using fossil fuels to save the planet. Huh? That seems to be a good way to achieve it. And then just wait a year in your bunker on your private land with your like insulated from all the chaos, with your vast stores of wealth and money, and maybe your private gardens that you get all your food from, and you can just wait it out. There's a big fence and a big wall around your estate, and nobody knows where you are anyway. Or maybe you go to a private island and you just wait it out. It only takes a year. Most of them be gone after a year. Scary stuff. But Meadows, who is one of the main authors of the Club of Rome's 1972 pro-depopulation book, The Limits to Growth, and an honorary member of the Club of Rome, as well as a member of the World Economic Forum, argues that the goal can be achieved peacefully. So I think this folds into what we talked about last week. HEYS Reviews Lives, episode 13, Robots in These Guys, where we talked about the link between transsexualism and transhumanism. I think the peaceful element that he's talking about here, the peaceful strategy to make this happen, is to get people to voluntarily stop having children, to get people to voluntarily move away from reproduction and fatherhood and motherhood and family and culture and tradition, and that whole noble goal of civilization to make things better in the future than we had it ourselves. I think that is what he's talking about when he says it can be done peacefully. You can just bribe people and pay them off with Netflix, with computer games, with seed oils, with pornography, with alcohol, and weed, and you can just get them to kind of just live out the rest of their days in a sort of drunken, hazy stupor of masturbation and never bother having children, thus having no impact or investment in good outcomes for the future, thus allowing this depopulation to go and to happen unchallenged, unexposed. That would be my guess as what he means by it potentially being done peacefully. But his book was published over 50 years ago. His ideology, however, still aligns with the WEF's anti-human Depop agenda of today. And I also talked about that in an episode. I forget what number it was, but it was called Top of the Depops. I think that was episode 12, maybe, of HEYS Reviews Lives. That's on the channel. He argued that most of the world's population must be wiped out so that the survivors can have freedom and a high standard of living. Hashtag logic. So the way we bring freedom into the world is kill everybody. Well, not everybody, just most of them. All right, sounds like a good plan. Sign me up. And here is the limits to growth. Just in case you thought this book was a made-up fiction and doesn't exist, and that they can't possibly have a book that advocates depopulate. No, they do. It's here. Here's an electronic copy of it anyway. Linked below the show if you're watching this after the fact, or linked below the show soon after. Let's have a look. The limits to growth. Here he is, Dennis Meadows. Oh, and presumably his wife, Donella Meadows. Or maybe they're brother and sister, maybe they're cousins, maybe they're like the Rothschilds. Maybe Dennis is Donella's uncle. If you don't know what I'm referring to, I've been reading through a book on this channel from 1913 called The Romance of the Rothschilds. Old book, 110 years old. And in this book, we find out that the Rothschilds married their cousins, and they married their cousins off to their uncles, and they had all sorts of keep it in the family type activity going on. Excuse me a second, I'm just going to itch my nose. I swear, my nose never itches throughout the day, and then it just goes wild when I'm live streaming. So back to the limits of growth. Dennis and Donella, Jorgen and William. William W. Behrens III. So he's obviously from some family that has valuable blood, unless he just likes being a bit of a just putting Roman numerals after his name. Okay, first printed 1972. And it was printed five rounds of printing in that year, 1972. I don't know if there are subsequent printings of it, but I do know this physical copies of this book are expensive now. If you want to get one, have a look. Let's read a bit about the foreword about this group. Shall I zoom in for you? There you go. Easier on your eyes. In April 1968, a group of 30 individuals from 10 countries, scientists, educators, economists, humanists, industrialists, and national and international civil servants gathered in the Accademia dei Lincei in Rome. They met at the instigation of Dr. Aurelio Pace, an Italian industrial manager, economist, and man of vision, to discuss a subject of staggering scope, the present and future predicament of man. Out of this meeting grew the Club of Rome, an informal organization that has been aptly described as an invisible college. Remember that first page of Edward Bernays' book Propaganda, where he says there's an invisible government which the common man knows nothing about, who really shape and mold their minds and their opinions? Interesting phrase and terminology, isn't it? Its purposes are to foster understanding of the varied but interdependent components, economic, political, natural, and social, that make up the global system in which we all live, to bring that new understanding to the attention of policymakers and the public worldwide, and in this way to promote new policy initiatives and action. So in a shady, invisible group operating from the shadows, influencing and pulling the strings of the global one world, new world order, if you will. Brave new world order. The sustainable brave new world order, ruled over by the Green Queen, the Climatriarch. Yeah, I've said the title so many times in this episode because I was quite happy with that title when I came up with it. All right, so the contents of this book, we've got the nature of exponential growth, the limits to exponential growth, growth in world systems, technology and the limits to growth, the state of global equilibrium. Have a look at that. Check it out. Linked underneath here. Find out what these crazy depopulationists think and want to do. 50 years ago, 50 years this has been happening. 50 years this book has existed. And if you're first hearing about it today, you got to ask your question why that is. Is it your fault? Or is it been a concerted effort to keep it out of your awareness, keep it off your radar? Certainly, I don't think many people are getting this book in their schooling years. $2.75 when it came out. I feel like we should have a quick look at how much it costs now. Should we do that? Let's see. Let me just pull up another tab here. Pull that over there. So what I usually do, I'll show you what I do. What I usually do is I go to a website. Wait. Okay, that's wrong. What am I doing? I'm messing this up. That's what I'm doing. Shouldn't deviate from the plan. Stick to the plan. We have a plan for a reason. I go to this website. Okay, there it is. Bookfinder.com. This is the website that I go to. We type in the book we want to find, the limits to growth. And it searches 150 million books that are for sale on the internet. And it doesn't search and find all of them. There's still things that this website doesn't turn up. But it does a pretty good job. So you can see here we got Donella H. Meadows. And we got a load of copies of An Author Not Set. There's a 30-year update that came out. Let's look at the Donella H. Meadows one. Click that. And we can see here the 1974 first edition copy on the American Book Exchange. Cheapest copy is £223.73. Oh, but here, look at this. We got an £18.26 copy. That might be worth getting. There you go. It is cheap. So you can have it. You can have it and you can hold it and you can look at it and you can read it and you can preserve it and you can teach other people that there is a crazy agenda that is at least 50-year-old. And that is Amazon. That's in Germany. So there you go. If you want the hardcover version, that's slightly more expensive at a cool €470. All right, moving on with the show. This article, Woman System, came across. I've never been to this website, but this headline stood out to me, which is Peter Sweden. Peter Sweden. I guess it's a coincidence that his last name is Sweden. Huge. Sweden is scrapping the Agenda 2030 goals. So I don't know if this is true. I haven't confirmed it. I haven't checked out this news anywhere else. But if it is true, it is really good news. The new right-wing government is dismantling the goals outlined by the UN. Sweden has been doing a lot of things right. They have already scrapped their renewable energy plans and have been pushing for more nuclear power. In the new year, Sweden removed climate taxes on fuel, causing diesel prices to collapse by over 4 krona per litre. In 2022, when the Socialist Democrats were in power, the diesel price reached a whopping 28 krona per litre. After the right-wing government removed climate taxes, prices in the new year reached almost as low as 17 krona per litre. That is around 39% lower diesel prices. Wow. So I hope this is all true. They've even, over the Christmas holidays, removed the Agenda 2030 goals. So wonderful. It reminds me of during the great scam of 2020, that when Sweden were not locking down so hard and they were not forcing face nappies onto people, and they were not mandating as severely the experimental mRNA gene therapy injections, and they handled it all very calmly, and they gave the population the just the responsibility, and they just said, look, this is going on, we don't know what's going to happen, be sensible, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, Don't go anywhere if you're sneezing, a coughing, a spluttering, and you have flu-like symptoms. But other than that, it pretty much life carried on as normal, and they were absolutely fine, like all of us. You know, the reason that they turned out to be fine was because most of the fallout and the damage and the harm and the death was actually caused by the measures that the governments rolled out and implemented on people, not by some invisible particle that floated around in the air and made people sick. And so it reminds me of that. So Sweden were ahead of the game and handling things sensibly and logically back then, and it sounds like they're doing so now. A great example to draw attention to when you're debating these things and talking about them with people who are members of the Green Queen cult, let's say. And there's another article here from the expose about how the World Economic Forum and the United Nations are joining forces to initiate the next global crisis, which is going to be about water. So it sounds like a bit of a prediction. It's from December last year. But there's been a UN water conference in New York, and it's the first time the conference has been held in 46 years. The last one was in Argentina in 1977. But one of the critical things that stands out here is that they're talking about water as something that belongs to everyone. It's a common good, right? So the WEF held a press conference to launch its Global Commission on the Economics of Water during its 2022 annual meeting. At this press conference, one of the commission's chairs let the cat out of the bag as to why. The first clue is something the World Economic Forum wrote about the launch of the summary at the top of the article. The Global Commission on the Economics of Water, launched at the World Economic Forum annual meeting in 2022, will report on game-changing ways to value and manage water as a common good. Right, so this is the key phrase, common good. The common good is the collectivist term used for social control. Collectivism takes many forms: socialism, fascism, Nazism, or National Socialism, welfare statism, and communism. As German Nazi politician Hermann Goering said, the highest principle of Nazism is common good comes before private good. You will own nothing, you will be happy, and we'll do that for the common good, and we will do that in service of and in worship of the Climatriarch. Under socialism, a ruling class of intellectuals, bureaucrats, and social planners decide what people want or what is good for society, and then use the coercive power of the state to regulate tax and redistribute the wealth of those who work for a living. Yeah, so that's what's coming, and that's what they have planned. More investigation into these World Economic Forum and UN schemes. But some good news from Tyler Durden over at Zero Hedge is that consumers are rejecting the Great Reset. So he's got an anecdote here about a friend of his who used a Tesla and said it was completely shit. And so he's writing that it seems the EV craze has peaked already. Growth in gas cars is now far higher than electrics, flipping a trend from 12 months ago. Finally, consumers are figuring it out. It's a good second car, provided you're driving in your own town, you have a hookup at home, you can charge it overnight, and you don't suddenly have to go out of town. It's a toy, sometimes a fun one, but not a real car. For that, you need gas. Well said. If every car were electric, the grid would crash and rationing would be the norm. And maybe that's the whole point. You drive only with permission. Nothing about your transportation is within your control. Authorities will decide everything for you. It's a perfect strategy for creating a society of dependence. Yeah. That is also a very key point. Dependency on the system. Look out for anything and anyone whose lifestyle or beliefs require more dependency on the system, because that is the easy path of least resistance towards slavery and control, okay? And yeah, the electricity, everything being hooked up to the Internet of Things with hyper-fast 5G, 6G signals, controlling everything at all times, real-time feedback, data gathering, all of that is part of dependence, creating dependence on the system, which is just it's gonna make life really, really, really shit. Because you won't be able to do anything, and you'll be constantly paranoid and worried about everything you do or say being monitored and tracked and traced and databased and held against you, fed into your social credit score, refusing impeding your ability to buy things and go places and live life. And you'll get refused all over. Oh, you said you criticized the government in your latest live stream, Nick. I'm sorry, you now are not allowed to buy any more steak for the next 6 months. That's the kind of outcome, right? But good news, people are rejecting it, as well as electric cars. There's also a massive rejection of fake meat, with the stocks plummeting, and a massive rejection of the COVID-19 injections for which your tax dollars paid. The companies have stock sales and patents and a seeming public demand, except for one thing: they don't work. They're also highly dangerous. This is an incredible disaster for both Moderna and Pfizer. The Pfizer stock is down to $28 from $59 in 2 years. Moderna has fallen to $100 from $384 in the same time frame. They're both sitting on massive stockpiles of these injections with almost no remaining public demand for their endless boosters. They also face lawsuits with claims that the companies wildly exaggerated the benefit. In any case, they were never necessary for the vast majority of people, and certainly not for children. They paid off the Food and Drug Administration to give them permission to even sell products that would never have been approved under normal conditions. True, they needed an emergency in order to get these products approved and signed off and pushed out. And that is just crony capitalism at its very worst. It's create a demand, artificial demand, corner the market, build up the hype, continuously bombard and scare and push fear and paranoia and worry into the minds of people, and then say, hey, I've got the solution to that right here, and you can have it. Not only can you have it, we insist. But now people have realized that there is not a single person who does not regret not getting those injections. And that sounded a bit confusing. Let me try and say that again, slower, clearer. Nobody who said no to them regrets it. That's my challenge. Like, see if there's anyone out there who says, you know what, I really wish I got those injections. And if they do say that because they got sick, check out their lifestyle, have a look at how they live their life. And it's easy. People tend to jump to the assumption or the belief that some invisible particle that they picked up by touching a door handle made them sick, instead of their awful lifestyle where they're taking in nasty chemicals and low quality food and all sorts of toxins and avenues for chemical interference with their body through the things they use in their home. Sedentary lifestyle, not getting enough exercise, not getting enough fresh air, not spending time in nature. All these things add up and contribute to health. And yet people would rather believe that an invisible little particle flying around in the air makes you sick. It's called germ theory for a reason. But good news, nevertheless, that these injections are not so popular. Lastly, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusivity, should be DIE. But that has hit the skids. Wisconsin just dialed back all funding and froze the programs. So following, I guess, on from Sweden's example, hopefully, although I don't know, DEI is kind of different from what Sweden's rolling back. We'll have to see if Sweden gets rid of that as well. But are you noticing a pattern here? Tyler Durden writes, markets in the real world are rejecting the Great Reset. Whether eating bugs, driving EVs, munching fake meat, or living in the metaverse with censorship, none of it is working. We can only hope that this trend continues and that it bankrupts the companies that threw themselves into the whole racket. Let's hope the consumer marketplace can render its final judgment before all of this jazz becomes mandatory, which is the real goal. Yeah, hope so, Tyler. What's next? All right, so blacklistednews.com, a website I'm trying to feature a little bit more because it's kind of an aggregate of all these different sources on the left. So it's a nice place. Instead of going to all these separate places to get your news, you can just come to this one place and find things that I might have overlooked and not seen. Publish this article, which is all about propaganda roundup, where Hillary Clinton claims climate change targets pregnant women. Mother Nature is a known domestic terrorist misogynist. Well, you know, in the name of the Green Queen, the great Climatriarch, I would actually agree with this. She is coming after the children and seems to not want children, or at least the movement that pushes this narrative is very against pregnant women. So Hillary's just coming out and saying we can estimate the amount of deaths caused by climate change, saying the majority of them are women and girls, and particularly pregnant women, with no proof or evidence or explanation as to how that has been worked out. The former Democratic presidential candidate referenced a visible pushback against women's rights and opportunities, pointing to a recent statement from Chinese leader Xi Jinping calling on women to actively cultivate a new culture of marriage and childbearing. What a bigot. How dare he? I can't believe he would even suggest such a thing. Marriage and childbearing? That's disgusting. What an animal. And then this video, I gotta show you, is so funny. These are all the and you know, funnily enough, this reminds me of the videos I saw from North Korea after their leader died, and I was living in South Korea at the time. And this is reactions to Hillary's speech. These are people, they're under mind control. They have joined a cult. They have outsourced their abilities. They have outsourced their emotional regulation, and they're so invested in a lie that a crony, wrinkly, old, evil bat like Hillary Clinton getting up there and spewing nonsense and lying brings them to tears. Now, I don't know if this, this is an ABC News video. And I haven't listened to the audio, so I don't know what she's saying. I've just watched it muted to look at all their expressions. But this is alarming, I would say, because the people pushing this agenda, they're exploiting good people. They're exploiting people who care and have compassion and empathy, and who want good outcomes for most people, and who want to back the underdog and back the oppressed, you know. And they're being made fools of, and they're being kind of pied pipered into their own destruction and demise. And it's their good intentions that are being weaponized and utilized, and that's opening them up to this kind of manipulation. And you know, it's sad, and we need to try and, well, rescue these people and bring them over to, read Ian Davis' blog and find out that actually all this climate science, climate change, murdering pregnant women thing is a lot of like nonsense that you should throw away and disregard. So the transhuman technocrats love climate change in such a case that it targets pregnant women because they hate legacy front-hold women getting pregnant anyway. Human reproduction the old-fashioned way, as in not in a lab, viscerally repulses them. Right on. That is so true. Anyway, thankfully, a brave and stunning Indian surgeon is devising a solution for all of the pregnant women killed by climate change. Trademark. Get rid of them and transplant their uteruses into transgendered. So, apparently, an Indian surgeon is looking to carry out a never-seen-before procedure by transplanting a womb into a trans woman, otherwise known as a man. As the person would have been born as a man, the risky and highly expensive procedure will help biological men become pregnant. No, it won't. It's never going to happen. Men can't get pregnant. Full stop. Every transgender woman wants to be as female as possible, and that includes being a mother. That is a crazy, bold, like sweeping generalization and statement and claim to make, right? How does anybody know what every transgender woman wants? You know, what about the ones who suddenly transition right before they get put in prison, and then and then they get put in women's prisons? Do they want to be as female as possible and be a mother? Do they? Well, you apparently would know, because you're speaking to the mirror on behalf of all transgender women, aka men. So anyway, that's someone's trying to do that, and that's bizarre and insane, I think. You know, I actually prefer Xi Jinping's method of calling on women to get married and have kids, rather than this Indian surgeon's method. Who is this guy? What's his name? Kaushik's method. Which, the thing is, if you were successful in this procedure, in the ability to do this procedure, if they figure out how to do this, that is going to then drive up demand for this part on the black market. It's going to create a black market for this part of the human body, which means then human trafficking is going to be used in order to supply that demand. And that demand is going to come from men who have a fantasy about becoming a woman. And so women are going to be trafficked, brutalized, traumatized, butchered in order to satisfy this black market demand for their body part, which is going to be then put in men who don't have a sufficient grasp on reality and think that they can bend the rules, the creation put in place, the just immutable biological fact of chromosomes dictating what your body can and cannot do and what sex you are and whether you're a sperm producer or an egg producer. Okay, it's just bizarre and absolutely in line with these agendas that we talk about on the show. And there's a final section to this article here, which is about Bill Gates and his infamous quote. And this is what I think links to net zero really well, because he said this in this video here, which you can go and watch. You may have already seen it. It's pretty popular. It's in the rounds. It's a TED video, right? He says, the world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed to 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, and reproductive health services, we could lower that. So he wants to lower the world population using vaccines, healthcare, and reproductive health services. And then what he says later is there's an equation. Excuse me. He talks about this equation, a carbon dioxide equation. And he says that we put out a lot of carbon dioxide and somehow we have to make changes that will bring that down to zero. The equation has 4 factors. So you've got CO2, which you want to get to zero, and you've got the number of people, and you've got the services each person uses, and the energy on average for each service. Let's look at each one of these. Probably one of these numbers is going to have to get pretty near to zero. And then the audience laughs. And they all have a chuckle. Now, the only reason they wouldn't laugh if he's suggesting that the services each person uses needs to come to zero. That's not funny. It's not a joke. They wouldn't laugh if he was implying the energy comes to zero. That's not funny. It's not a joke. The audience are laughing because the implication is that the number of humans is going to have to get pretty near to zero, right? Now, this audience are laughing because they've been indoctrinated and infected by the mind virus that today's episode is all about. Because if you have any kind of love in your heart for humanity and human beings, and the miracle that is the perpetuation and creation of life, the man plus woman equals child equation that the continuation of civilization and life is built upon, the fundamental equation. And look, I don't have any problem with people opting out and not taking part in that equation and living a different kind of lifestyle. Whatever, fine, not a problem. But man plus woman equals child, that is the way it is, right? And if you don't have a love in your heart, and if you don't feel compassion and empathy and for that miracle, the beauty and the innocence of a child and that whole journey and the whole growing up, and it's all incredible. It's just like, I can't even find the words to describe it because it just fills me up with such awe at the majesty of it all, right? If you do not have that reaction, then you're going to laugh at this shit joke, and you're going to laugh at his implication that we need to wipe out most human beings. Right? So this audience are deeply in the pit of mind control and deeply infected with this mind virus of humans are a virus and we're a stain and a scourge on the planet and we all need to die. And it's just kind of so stupid. But that is Bill Gates, and that's what he's all about, and that is what his investments and his philanthropic endeavors are all geared towards achieving. Unmistakably, ambiguously. Check out his parents, what they did and what they were involved in. He is continuing their efforts without a shadow of a doubt. And is he making headway? Is he doing well? Is this a whole agenda, not just Gates, but also the rest of them, the World Economic Forum and the limits to growth people? Are they achieving it? Well, it looks like they are. Look at this from Statista. This is demographics and the total fertility rate in Europe in 2023 by country. Now, the TFR, total fertility rate. So the total fertility rate tells us how if the population is growing, stable, or declining. And what you need is for every woman in a society to have 2 children, and that will replace the man and the woman, the father and the mother. Okay, I mean, obviously it doesn't work like this, but if every man and woman gets together, then they need to have 2 children, and that will replace them when they die, and that will maintain the population, okay? And so the idea is that the women in a population should have 2.1 children in order for that population to remain stable over time. What is it in Europe at the moment by 2023? Well, it is definitely not 2.1 in most places. France, 1.79. Ireland, 1.76. Romania, 1.74. Denmark, Iceland, Estonia, Sweden, Netherlands, Belgium. It's going down. Look at all these places. They're all below replacement levels. All of them except for Faroe Islands, Monaco. Well, just those 2 places. That whatever's going on there is good. Maybe I should have a look at moving there or visiting there or something. But the European average is 1.5. This means we are below replacement levels. This means that the country, the population is declining in accordance with Bill Gates's TED Talk, getting this number down to 0. Right? It's working. It's happening. It's occurring right now. And this is the backdrop against which I think more people need to view their lives, is against a backdrop of depopulation, of Depop. King of the Depop. That's Bill Gates's unofficial moniker. But Top of the Depops was my episode going into this a little bit more. But it ties into the agenda that we've been exploring and discussing about today, which is that too many people on the planet harming Mother Gaia, Mother Nature, therefore get rid of the people and have freedom for whoever's left. And so Statista, have a look. This is their evidence. So could be wrong. Absolutely could be wrong. But I got this from a video that I'm going to give to you now, hopefully. This one. So let's mute this and we'll just hit play. This is Truth Stream Media. This is one of the best channels on YouTube, in my humble opinion, in terms of telling the truth, letting us know what's going on, making documentaries and putting it out for free. I'm just going to come away from that for a second. I want to do something with my audio settings, and because I would like to play maybe the first minute or so, minute and a half for you. And to do that, I'm going to have to open up my desktop audio, click a few buttons and get it ready. But TrueStream Media, what a resource. Incredible. Aaron and Melissa Dykes, they're a couple, and they put out these documentaries, and it is so well researched, such revelations about the world we live in and the legacy of the people who are doing what they're doing and the history leading up to it to bring us to where we are now. And this one was 3 days ago it came out, and it's an incredible piece of work. And underneath in the video here, in the comments, she's looking at data from the CIA, from the UN, and from Our World in Data, as well as the website we just looked at, Statista. And it's pretty scary and alarming stuff, the situation that we are in. So let's watch a minute or so of that.
We live in a world that glamorizes and promotes the child-free life. And we've been seeing this for a while, that they really, that's what gets pushed. That's what gets promoted. It's what gets glamorized. There's a new trend now called DINKS, which I didn't make up. This stands for double income, no kids. So it's DINKS. And this is people who, again, these are people who refer to themselves as DINKS. By choice, they're doing this. They say they're DINKS.
Okay, I think I might have messed that up and not been putting the audio through for that last video. Let me just whiz it back. Try that one more time. A little redo, if that's okay. Let's give it another go. Thank you.
We live in a world that glamorizes and promotes the child-free life. And we've been seeing this for a while, that they really, that's what gets pushed. That's what gets promoted. It's what gets glamorized. There's a new trend now called DINKS, which I didn't make up. This stands for double income, no kids. So it's DINKS. And this is people who, again, these are people who refer to themselves as DINKS. By choice, they're doing this. They say they're DINKS. And they're doing dink dances on TikTok. And it's supposed to be really exciting because they can do whatever they want whenever they want, because they don't have any small humans to be financially or otherwise responsible for.
We're DINKS. We're going to go to Costco and buy all the snacks in bulk that we want.
We're DINKS. We have disposable income to spend on whatever we would like and don't have to spend on a kid.
We're DINKS. I'm going to go to every football game and play 18 holes whenever I want.
We're DINKS. We're going to get asked to every single family event what we're doing with our life.
All right. I think maybe that audio was coming through. You might have heard that or got that clip twice there. But I just wanted to play that tiny snippet. The video, as you can see, is much longer. DINKS. And they're glad about it, and they're happy, and they're celebrating, and we're DINKS. We get to spend all our money on snacks that we want. And basically what I'm hearing there is we're children. We're childish, and we're going to remain childish, and that's what we want to do for the rest of our lives. And so we're not taking part in civilization. We're not taking part in the continuation of anything good and noble in the creation of a better future. We've removed our investment in any outcome for the future, and so it's pretty interesting that it's happening here, and it's happening in the same sort of places where net zero is being rolled out. I think there's a correlation there that is worth investigating. So there's a good little 46-minute documentary for you to investigate and to watch and enjoy. So I think I wanted to put that on your radar. Truth Stream Media, fantastic channel, great work. I'm very inspired by what they do, and like to turn more people onto it if they're not aware. What else we got? Okay, another one. Corbett Report. So this interview is from a year ago, 2 years ago almost. This is the Last American Vagabond joining James Corbett of Corbett Report, and they're having an hour-long discussion about the climate change gambit. So this can be viewed here. It can be viewed in BitChute, Odyssey, or Rumble. You can listen to it directly on the CorbettReport.com. I'm going to link this under the video. I wanted to include this one because the show notes are really phenomenal for this one. It is really in-depth and a massive amount of links and resources to explore. What is the average global temperature? Orwell's nightmare. Climate questions answered in 60 seconds. Another interview. Globalist simulation comes true. Netherlands shutting down 3,000 farms. Weather is not climate. So way more like let them eat fake meat from the man himself, Mr. Bill Gates. Biodigital convergence. What is technocracy? An Absolute Zero, the Global Agenda Revealed, which I think I have linked. I have that linked later on in this show as well. And then his documentary on how BlackRock conquered the world. BlackRock is an investment fund, hedge fund or something like that. They own a massive amount of financial assets, and they are pushing a lot of this net zero nonsense on people. And so it's a 3-part documentary there to give you even more context to make you aware of this continuity that's been going on for a long time now. Which is leading to this. It hasn't just come out of nowhere. It's not just spontaneous. It's not just for the good of the greater good and the common good. It is actually an agenda that has been calculated and has been rolled out deliberately in order to achieve the Depop agenda. So Corbett Report, fantastic reporting, amazing resource. He's been at this for quite a long time. Very much worth paying attention to his work. And Last American Bag On as well. So this next resource, this is one that a friend sent to me, and this is a video from the Worldwide Psychological Operation at FWAP UK. And this is Odyssey. This is the kind of video that you can't find on YouTube, so you've got to go to places like Odyssey to check it out. It's great to see on the right here, we got Sandy Adams. She's been doing fantastic work exposing Agenda 2030, which is the UN Sustainable Development. She's been at it in the game for quite a while. Really worth checking her out. I saw her speak in Birmingham during lockdown. She was at an event where I saw DJ Mark Devlin as well. So good to see that this channel here is in good company, Sandy Adams. But this video is really good. I wanted to play a short snippet from the start as well. Another great place to get context. But in the case of this guy, he's been fighting it on the ground here in the UK. And a lot of revelations and somebody who's actually been on the front line, fighting the fight, talking about it, teaching about it, experiencing firsthand the resistance and the tactics and the method used to derail any movements that expose this kind of agenda. Right now, they can't derail and shut up everybody, which is why it's great to speak out and to be adding my voice to this whole thing. But I would like to play now a short snippet of this.
Been tracking what's known as Agenda 21, now Agenda 2030, the Sustainable Development Goals, for quite some time. And in 2014, I started to see it absolutely rolled out in Waltham Forest as per the plans, which I'd already seen. And there is basically a conference every year about global governance. And the last one I actually recorded, I think, was 2019, before COVID. And the things that they actually say in these conferences are very chilling if you understand the limited language that they're actually using. So when we talk about sustainable development, what we're actually talking about is a depopulation program and management of all resources on the planet, including human resources, which is why there is a depopulation agenda at the moment. And that depopulation agenda is going to be played out over the next couple of years, because the whole idea of sustainable development is a massively reduced population. So the whole point of this is that it's worked out in a way that is attractive to the public. So in other words, it starts with 20-mile-per-hour zones and speed humps. And then you get cycling lobbyist groups coming in and saying, how much more cycling do you want? We have change agent groups, which I've studied for many years. And a lot of this filters down through think tanks. So what we're looking at here, even locally, is a global system which is implemented at a local level.
A global system that is implemented at a local level. So a brilliant 26-minute video there. He goes into the resistance that he's experienced, the strategies and the tactics that work, the things that don't work. Really great resource. That's the only video of his that I've seen. I'm sure there's plenty of other good stuff going on his channel, but there's another place for you to explore and get fact up and learnified and find out what's going on, because it's an agenda and it's real and there's books written about it. And if more people read books and paid attention to what was in the books, then perhaps it wouldn't be rolling out so successfully. Just a thought. But there you are. There is, I guess this guy's Mark Windows. Good name. Okay, we're kind of coming into land now, and we're just going through our resources and further learning section. So I wanted to highlight Off Guardian again, one of my favorite websites, place worth supporting in fearless independent journalism, a variety of creators and writers in there, and such as C.J. Hopkins, Ian Davis's works featured on there, Kit Knightley. So if you go over there and you type in climate change, you're going to get out 457 search results, because there's been a lot of pushback. There's been a lot of people exposing this agenda for quite a long time. And because it's not covered in the mainstream, it's not pushed by BBC, not pushed by Guardian or the Daily Mirror, the right or the left established news outlets, people aren't aware of it. They don't know about Sandy Adams. They don't know about certain books that I'm going to show you in a moment. But offguardian.co.uk, these are ex-Guardian journalists. They left the Guardian because of the control and the censorship and the top-down requirement to avoid certain topics and to push certain narratives. They said, no, thank you. We're going to go over here and do our own thing. And they just do really great work. I love coming here to get informed. So brilliant resource if you want to do further learning. And the first three hits here are the Ian Davis series that we talked about already on this episode. But further things as well. Why are the globalists calling climate change a public health crisis? Climate change is turning our planet into hell on earth. The climate change gambit. So that's the Corbett and Last American Vagabond interview that we just mentioned. The war on climate change is coming again. More sudden heart attacks with a climate change twist. Yeah, so this is an article about people who were just suddenly getting heart attacks out of nowhere, and we didn't know what it was. Must be climate change, right? Because there's nothing else that's been rolled out on a mass scale that's experimental. It must be the weather. But anyway, that is a great resource. That is going to be linked below. You can do more reading and more learning, and then you can tell your family and friends, or you can argue with people down the pub, or you can pitch these new perspectives to anyone you meet. Next resource, book, Behind the Green Mask, UN Agenda 21. This book is by Rosa Quar. I don't know how to pronounce that. Rosa Quar. Rest in peace. She has died and she has passed on. But she wrote, before she went on, she wrote this fantastic book, which basically explodes the myth of the UN Agenda 21 and is partly an inspiration behind what I decided to title today's episode. And she's got this website. I don't know if it's still active, the postsustainabilityinstitute.org. Let's go down here. We got the content. So I wanted to just look at so it's just 2011 this book came out. Zoom in a bit there so you can see that. 2011. So people have been exposing the UN and this agenda for many, many years. I didn't know about all this stuff until the last 4 years, right? So no problem, no shame, no embarrassment. If this is new news to anybody out there who might be listening or who's been sent this video or something, the work's been done by people like Rosa Quare, and you can pick up this book, short book, 200 pages, no, 169 pages even, and then you can get up to speed very quickly by just blasting through this PDF, and great topics in here. It's the individual versus the collective. So it's this idea of subjugating the individual in favor of the greater good, in favor of the collective. That's the root idea at the root of socialism, communism, totalitarianism. It's always about you have to give up what you've got for this amorphous, this imaginary entity called the society, the greater good, and that's what it's all about, right? What is the UN agenda and why should I care? Consensus, neutralizing enemies. Yeah, so this is this, when you talk about these things to people, they say, yeah, but 99% of scientists agree that climate change is a thing. And it's like, so this statistic has been implanted in people's minds and they just repeat it like that's evidence or means anything in this debate or this discussion, right? So you've got to establish a consensus, and this is how they do it. Then you've got to use the Delphi technique to give the illusion that everyone agrees and everybody knows that this is a thing, and therefore don't question it or look into it or learn about it. Just go along with the consensus. Just repeat it and believe it. Have faith in it. It's not possible that so many people could be fooled, and so it becomes this cult-like ritualistic behavior and belief, Okay, so you got to establish the consensus, and then you got to spread the illusion that it is a consensus using the Delphi technique. And this is a way that meetings are run at local councils on the local level. When you invite the community to come in and have a debate and a discussion about this 200-acre solar panel field that we want to build, little known to most participants, the destiny of that solar panel field has already been decided. The outcome of the meeting has already been decided. This is just a formality to say we consulted the local population and this was the outcome, even though, and the meeting is steered in a certain way. That's the Delphi technique. Steers the meeting, controls what is acceptable to say and talk about, and then steers the meeting towards a predetermined and predefined outcome. You might be asking yourself this question: how could all of this be going on without my knowledge of approval? Well, you can find out by reading that part of the book. So, what a good resource. I ripped through this book when I first read it about 2 years ago now. Just, very unputdownable, maybe take you 2 or 3 hours, depending on how fast you read, to get through it. And then you're going to have a really good kind of 101 introduction to this other dark side of the UN and the Agenda 21 and the Sustainable Development nonsense. Yeah, here it is. Here is Absolute Zero. So this is the document linked to underneath the Corbett Report podcast. This is from Delivering the UK's Climate Change Commitment with Incremental Changes to Today's Technology. Absolute Zero. And we've talked about exactly what they want to get down to zero. This is 2019, right? So this, again, it's been going on a while. And Bill Gates wants to get it down to zero people. And the key part of this that I wanted to look at is here. And this is the timeline, 2020 to 2029, and it's road vehicles, and this bar of color thins as they phase out the specific technology. So you can see flying, shipping, rail, and road, they want to reduce all that. Fossil fuels, quickly reduce it. Construction, reduced. Food, reduced. How do you reduce the food unless you also want to reduce the population? Heating, reduce it. Appliances, down. This is all just taking us back to the Stone Age, although it's going to be like a weird hybrid of Stone Age living with high-tech, technocratic technology overseeing and manipulating and controlling us. It's going to be very strange, the future that they have planned, which is stupid and can't happen and can't be rolled out. But that page is pretty revealing. We've got a few more decades till they want to see this. 2050, though, that is when it stops, according to their plan. So you can expect more events, more narratives, more talking heads, more cementing and of the consensus, which is a con. It's a scam. It's not a consensus out there. More pushing through the propaganda mechanisms of agreement and not agreement, but acceptance and belief and trust and faith and loyalty and adherence to this cult, this religious behavior, this cult-like behavior that has its own rituals, recycling being one of them that we've talked about in this episode. And a further bonus resource for you today, which is this index of ebooks. So this is the Avalon Library, and a viewer sent this to me via Instagram. Said, hey, dude, did you know about this Avalon Library? It's where the kind of books you read get stored and preserved. And boy, is it a hell of a resource. So I just come here, I just do a little Control F, and earlier I typed in limits because I was looking for limits to growth. Boom, there it was. Fantastic. Now, what else could we do? I've been streaming H.G. Wells recently. Is he here? Looks like we haven't got H.G. Wells in here. So we could add that. Or we could, there he is. So H.G. Wells, The Invisible Man and Anticipations of the Reaction of Mechanical and Scientific Progress upon Human Life and Thought. There you go. So we got Wells. Who else we got in here? We got Huxley. We got Aldous Huxley. Of course we have. Brave New World. What else? Have we got anything about the Roth? Yeah, we got them as well. The Rothschild Dynasty is here by Dr. John Coleman. So this is a really good place to come to get read and learned. Really up your knowledge about these kind of movements and events. And you can see it's packed. There is all sorts going on here. You got your Von Daniken books, alternative history. Probably got some. Who's the other guy? Hancock, Graham Hancock. Oh yeah, everything by Graham Hancock. But what's the other guy? I've been meaning. I've got a few books by now. Velikovsky. I don't even know how you spell Velikovsky. Emmanuel Velikovsky. Oh, it doesn't look like we have him. Anyway, you get the point. You see where I'm coming from. Have we got Anthony Sutton? Oh yeah, we got Anthony C. Sutton. Wall Street and FDR, Wall Street and the Rise of Hitler, America's Secret Establishment, Wall Street and the Bolshevik Revolution. Right? So you got the OGs. Who's the other OG? G. Edward Griffin. Let's see. We should search for Griffin. Edward Griffin, The Grand Deception, A Second Look at the War on Terrorism, Creature from Jekyll Island, World Without Cancer, G. Edward Griffin. There you go. So, check that out for a resource. I expect you to have read everything and know it all inside out, because there will be a test during next week's live stream. But the link for this will be down there. Grab it, bookmark it, and get learned. That's what we got to do, isn't it? That's all we can do. Okay, this is, let me just go back to my main cam. And, you know, it wouldn't be a HEYS Reviews episode if we didn't have a look at some books. So 3 books to recommend on this topic to add to the conversation. This first one is by Edwin Black. So Edwin Black is the author of IBM and the Holocaust, which I've reviewed on my channel in a 2.5-hour review that took me. And I put a lot of effort into editing it. And I did it in the thick of winter in a flat that had no central heating, which is why I'm wearing a weird Eskimo outfit. And he wrote a great book with IBM and the Holocaust, very enlightening and eye-opening, very keen researcher, immense attention to detail. And I bought this other book by him, which is Internal Combustion: How Corporations and Governments Addicted the World to Oil and Derailed the Alternatives. Now, the interesting bit to me about this was the alternatives that have been deliberately derailed, because this helps bust the narrative that we need to invent and invest in all these new technologies, and we've got to fund and reward and put out these lucrative contracts and make sure that these innovative companies are being funded. And it's like, no. The solutions and the technology already exists, and you guys, you oil magnates and oil barons and Rockefellers and Standard Oil companies and bankers, you derailed it. You got rid of them. You made sure we didn't have access to them. You murder the people who come up with those solutions, in fact, right? So a good bit of history here, Internal Combustion. High praise for this man. He's very fearless. And I believe his first book, The Transfer Agreement, led to him being kind of disowned by his parents. So somebody who's willing to go wherever the truth leads, you know, very, very worthwhile effort, worth listening to, worth learning from. So that's book 1 of 3. Book 2, The Earth Brokers. This is Power, Politics, and World Development. So this one is a shorter book, quite a snappy read, and it is all about, let's have a look. Let's zoom in a bit. After decades of failed development plans for the South and the mounting pressure of the environmental crisis all over the planet, the Earth Summit was billed as a dramatic new approach to solving the planet's problems, because for the first time it was recognized that environment and development were inseparable and thus needed to be tackled together. So this is all about how there are genuine, real environmental issues that need to be addressed and need to be dealt with, but then there's also a kind of fake, made-up, illusory environmental movement and set of issues that are man-made and done on purpose in order to roll out the agenda that we're talking about today. That is The Earth Brokers. Book 3, Green Hell: How Environmentalists Plan to Control Your Life and What You Can Do to Stop Them, by Steve Milloy. Another good one. Another one worth getting into. Finding the other side of the coin. Even if you are totally skeptical about everything I'm saying, it's not going to do you any harm to get in and read these books, is it? Because at the very worst, if it turns out to be a load of bunk, it's going to strengthen your position. It's going to arm you with more weaponry and more talking points to combat the people who don't believe in your climate change narrative. Because you're going to be able to say, well, no, I read that Rosa Quarry's book and it's wrong for all these reasons. Or I read Green Hell and it's wrong for all these reasons. And it's going to steelman your position. So you have nothing to lose by investigating and looking at the opposing evidence and everything to gain. It's a win-win situation. It's a no-brainer. So definitely get in there. Look at those 3 books for you. I'm not sure these 3 are on the Avalon Library link. You might have to go and buy copies of these for yourself. All right, I think that is it. We are here. We've made it to the end of the show. And so what I said I would do at the start is that I would have a look quickly to see if we've got any viewers and comments or anything. Oh yeah, we've had quite a bit of action in the chat today. That's awesome. So, surprise stream. Yeah. Yeah, Adamski. Adamski says surprise stream. Yeah, I didn't plan ahead. I wasn't sure how my weekend was going to pan out, and I got up this morning and I thought, you know what? I bet I can whip together an episode and go through the articles and get something out today. And so yeah, it was kind of unplanned and spontaneous, but I got another one on the record, which is always good. And I'm going to be doing chapter 5 of the Rothschild book this evening at 8 p.m. So 2 streams today. Richard Morris says, enjoying your work, brother. Hope your audience continues to grow. Thumbs up. Awesome. Thank you, Richard. I'm glad you enjoy it. For me, as long as people are here, if somebody's here, if one person's here and getting value and able to learn and it's helping them close that knowledge gap and become more in tune with reality and truth and what's going on in the world, then it's worth doing, but I'm really glad you're here. Malk, I'm still on the Rothschilds. Got a lot of catching up to do. This sounds good though. Take your time. I'm going to be looking into getting a backup channel, Odyssey or Rumble or somewhere like that soon. And so we won't just have to rely on YouTube's kindness to keep hosting this stuff. We'll get it backed up somewhere else so it will live on. Maybe Rockfin, if they'll let me in. Stokegas says, hello. Hello to you. Adamski, how does this capitalism like juggernaut from moving in the direction it's going? I'm not sure about that question. How do we? Yeah, I think we just got to get out of the way. Got to make ourselves as self-sufficient with community, with skills, with knowledge, with trust, high trust relationships. Make ourselves useful, learn valuable life skills, high value skills, and prepare as best we can. Because it's a juggernaut. It's a Titanic type situation. It's going to take a lot of people out with it, which is sad. It's heartbreaking, but maybe we can turn it around. I don't know, but we certainly can't by doing nothing, and we certainly can't by staying silent, right? So speaking out and taking action, 2 critical parts, and I would say also having some faith and belief and optimism. To a certain extent, you got to kind of choose to be optimistic and have faith and have belief in humans, humanity, their ability, our ability to adapt and change and grow and overcome and cooperate. We got a lot of love in us, and in this reality, I think is very much based on good things, goodness. So more of that, do what you can to emphasize that and bring it out in yourself and in others around you. Adrian says, too late, Adam, corporate communism going global. It certainly seems that way, doesn't it? Ashley Styles, I see 1 million invested in QR code operated barriers that are as yet to be activated. Normalized. Q, them barriers has always been there. Ashley Styles says, Telegraph was owned by Boris Johnson's wife's father. Oh, I didn't know that. Bond says, not written in the stars, but in the agenda. Miami Rose, it's all going to fail big time and Davos crew are doomed. I tend to believe that. I mean, I don't see how it can succeed. It's too convoluted. It's too ambitious. It's too against natural law. It's too against the human spirit. It's just so inverted and immoral, and that it has to collapse and give way to push back and the goodness of most people eventually, I think. Okay, Christoph AV. Don't forget the escorts as part of their travel to strike deals, just like in Davos. Oh yeah, the 2,500 a night escorts that were the spike that went up when Davos was happening. Yeah, toilet roll holder. £8,000 to put solar panels on my roof, and it will take 23 years to recoup the initial cost as long as I don't have to pay interest, as per EPC rating. Scam, scam, scammity, scam. Yeah. Toilet roll holder jokes are almost illegal now. Almost. I mean, I think the key there is to get better with your jokes. So a good example might be Owen Benjamin, right? I mean, the most cancelled comedian on the internet. Dude is hilarious. He's so funny. And he's still going, and he's still out there. He's on Instagram. He's doing his live streams. He's built a platform. He's bought land to host festivals. So you got to get better with your jokes, and you got to almost double down. No sacred cows, and really joke and keep your humor and under all circumstances, you know. Even if the other person is moody and not getting it or irritated or whatever, it's about like being humorous and funny without being mean. I don't like to rip on people and make them feel worse with my humor. I like to try and cheer them up and uplift them if they're in a sour mood. Toilet roll holder, 8,000 is a bargain. Which company quoted you this? Good conversation about solar panels. Yeah, I agree with you there. You said toilet roll holder says you wouldn't put solar panels on your roof unless proven they are genuinely a good thing. Yeah, I think the technology has a lot to be desired. I think it's deliberately crap so that, you know, it's part of divide and conquer, isn't it? Some people will go into it hook, line, and sinker. Yeah, let's get a Tesla. And other people, a bit more analytical, might stand back and go, let's see how this plays out. Look at it, go, actually, that's a lot of shit. I'm not doing it. And then you've got a nice little divide there. The people who are totally bought in and believe in the Tesla religion, and the people who are just like, no, actually, it doesn't serve my needs and it's impractical and dangerous. Miami Rose, suggesting the planet's climate is separate from space weather is a joke. Yeah. The models never factor in the sun. that huge ball that you can feel the heat on your skin, and it can burn your skin and make it crispy, and it can make grass die when there's too much of it. They don't factor that into their model, apparently. Toilet roll holder says, I'm definitely going to get cancelled because I'm talking too much sense. Well, this is why I've started back recording my streams to my laptop and backing them up so we can upload them somewhere else. Adamski says, can you link it? I'm not sure what you need me to link, so just give me another reminder. Everything I've talked about will get linked, though. Toilet roll holder. My son can't buy a home and I plan to leave in mine. However, I worry that the scum will find a way to take it off me before he gets it. Yeah. Yeah, I would be concerned about that. I don't know. Perhaps you can put it in a trust. I don't know much about it, but maybe there's something you can explore is to create a trust and put things in there. But I don't know. I'm not by no means an expert on anything, really. Adamski, 99 out of 100 times the models they use are vastly wrong. Yeah. Heidi EB says, most have no idea how natural systems work, but that can change. Lots of people will be happy with a pod and a VR set. It's very scary how people are spellbound. Yeah. Yeah, a pod and a VR set, you know, and an intravenous Coca-Cola drip and some cockroach protein bars, which if you've never seen the film Snowpiercer, then that's a bit of a spoiler alert for you there. Hey, Crispy Rothschild, what's up, man? Dr. Crispy Rothschild, sorry, I'll use your correct title there. Peaceful Depop, yeah, exactly. Philanthropath gonna philanthropath, says Heidi EB. Oh, that reminds me, I heard a good word recently on another group I'm in with the One Great Work Warriors, who are aligned with Mark Passio and his teaching of natural law. And somebody in that group came up with the word statanists. And this is a satanic statist. We can call them statanists. And so I thought that's a good one to use. And I like philanthropath as well. So we're dealing with philanthropaths and statanists. Free download above. It says Plane Drifter. Cool. I'm not sure what you're talking about, but hopefully somebody understands that. Peak EV. Ashley Styles caught COVID by going onto a jab bus and was shedded on. Bad luck there. Adamski, when are we getting the pitchforks? Well, they come in handy, but, maybe for farming and for dealing with your hay. So get the farm first, and get all that infrastructure in place. And once you've got the farm, then get the pitchfork, because otherwise it's not going to be that useful. Oh, you heard them. Yeah. I messed up with the sharing the sound on that other clip, so sorry about that. Heidi EB. I learned of this anti-life agenda when I quit veganism. I learned so much when I realized that my body was falling apart. So sad for the young people entranced by the lies. Yeah. I transformed my mental health when I went on a really meat-heavy diet, and it made a huge difference to me. I was really a breaking point at one time, very stressed, very liable to panic and anxiety and depression, and I bailed out of where I was living, and I was like, I'm going to fix this. And I went into some reading and research and learning, and just loads of meat really, really helped me to level me out and get me back on track. And so getting rid of meat, that is something that is seems to be definitely in the works. So worth getting in contact with farmers and getting to know the people who raise meat. And as I mentioned, get some rabbits. I hear they're good, quiet sources of meat. Okay, Ashley Styles. I don't know if I'm going to read that out. Adam Ski, looking forward to the next chapter in Rothschild book. Yeah, cool. Well, that's going to be 8 o'clock this evening, UK time, which is 5 hours from now. So, cool. That is us. That's where we're at. That's what we've done. So, as usual, you know, I've got the links under the video for everything we talked about today. And if you want to throw any support my way, you can do that by just exploring the affiliate links underneath. There's a buy me a coffee, but better to just join the Instagram, join the Telegram. If you use those, you can stay up to date, and find me if I get booted off Gulag Tube, which, let's face it, is very possible and could happen any day now. So we'll see. Thank you all for being here. Lovely to have an audience on a Saturday. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend and have good times with the people you love and who are close to you. Enjoy some sun if there is anywhere you are. I've got another live stream coming up at 8 p.m. We're going to be going through the next chapter on the Rothschild book. And I think that is all I have to say for now. So much love. Thank you all again. This is wonderful. I'm really enjoying what we've got going here. You know, it's a we thing. It's not a communitarian thing. It's not a communist thing, but it's a kind of hopefully curious minds coming together to learn from each other. You know, I'm not going to be right about everything, but I'm not going to lie. I'm going to tell you the truth as I see it, and I'm always open to new information and new perspectives, and happy to be corrected if I make a mistake, which I'm sure I will at some point. But hopefully that was entertaining and useful and gave you further avenues for learning. So with that said, I'm going to close it out now. God bless to you. That's it. Yeah. What else can you say more than that? God bless.